Chapter 8, White Cat. Everything in warfare is based on deception. Therefore, deception is the art of war. Sun Tzu. July 28, 2011. I want your love and I want your revenge. You and me could write a bad romance. Like most days, I wake up to Valdez playing Lady Gaga. I get dressed, shave, brush my teeth, and paint my face white. After I get water in my Camelback, I eat some food and sit on the bench in front of the command center and watch a litter of yellow, feral kittens play in the pomegranate bushes, feasting on the food scraps we would toss to them. I enjoy the moment of quiet and solitude as I watch them play. While the morning twilight rose in the sky, giving a light blue hue, the battle of the roosters began. The hour approached and I donned my gear. The first thing I put on is my belt of about 8 M203 grenade launcher rounds. Next, a heavy plate carrier with side plates wrapped in a cummerbund, total weight of about 45 pounds with 6 full magazines of 5.56 hollow points. Light infantry, we are not. However, I'm happy my Kevlar helmet is lightweight and can take a 7.62 round impact with ease and seems to just disappear on my head. The structure of the military is biblical. 12 men and a squad leader, total of 13. 12 is divisible by 3, breaking down into 3 fire teams consisting of 3 Marines and a team leader. From the squad level up, the military tries to fashion its command structure amongst the rule of 3s. For every 1 Marine on patrol, there are well over 1,000 Marines in supporting operations. 3 is the golden number because when you're in combat, your ability to recall memory is greatly affected because the hippocampus in your brain physically shrinks. When this happens, training kicks in the rhyme of 3s. Tap, rack, bang. Shoot, move, communicate, or for civilians, in emergency call 911. When the Mohawk Marines leave the wire, there are only 9 of us. The bare minimum needed to leave. I say a quick prayer. God protect us and keep us safe as we leave the wire, venturing into the minefield on foot. The battlefield is called the theater of war, and we are all consummate actors. We even call our enemies bad actors. It's interesting how on patrol one thing leads to another, and the best way to handle is just to go with the flow, wherever it may lead you. One guy you thought was spotting you was in fact a good guy you were looking for who leads you to a better direction to find bad guys. You meet him, drink chai, get info, move on. In Afghanistan, if you sit in an open field with no one around and you call over one person to talk, in about 10 minutes you'll have a gathering of people and kids. Every time we stop, the kids manifest. We stop by a local's house that we have had a high suspicion he was a spotter for the Taliban. I put him into the hide system and told him that we own him because we have his fingerprints, eyes, and face. I go through my typical ordeal. I get into the local's personal space, break down any barriers such as crossed arms, legs, and fidgeting. I lean in close to his face, sometimes lean into his ear with the terp as well, and recite this calm, almost whisper-like manner. Your mouth can lie about your name and what you do and who you are, but your face doesn't lie, and your eyes don't lie, and your fingers don't lie, and we have all those. We own you. If you touch something like a mine, gun, bullets, or radio, I will know. If you see us, it's because we want you to see us. Unquestionably, this was not an easy act to work out with GQ. In the beginning, GQ would argue with me, then argue with the Afghan being questioned. GQ was a hard terp to control, and he generally acted like a depressed teenager and spoke that way too. Pandering to his sense of aristocracy is what ultimately worked. After numerous talks, he finally understood the deeper meaning of ownership and elitism I was trying to get him to express when communicating my biometrics collection statement. Then he owned it. And once he got the translation right, I saw the change in the demeanor of the locals before and after the statement. They seem to take me more seriously. Little creative things go far in a third world country, to include making farting noises with my mouth when I pull their orange henna-stained fingers onto the print scanner. I introduce myself as Spina Pishaka, which translates to white cat, which makes the locals laugh when I respond with a cat meow. Then I follow with Zadarema Dwa'alaka ya Jalida, meaning I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. The locals would throw in the word Liwane, which translates to crazy, with a big smile to match. The average Afghan male is 6 foot 5 inches and towers over my 5 foot 8 inches. My proper Afghan name would be Michael Nick Nick. Moreover, the concept of sunblock is entirely foreign to them. I am very disciplined about its application and use on my face before going out on patrol. Bright white SPF 90, essentially axle grease, is what I use. In hindsight and foresight, these locals think I'm insane. I'm a shorter white American Marine in a minefield that paints my face white and calls myself a white cat, meows, and makes farting sounds during serious situations. Did you know that Nick and John are common Afghan names? An Afghan has a first name, father's name, and grandfather's name. When learning Pashto and Rosetta Stone, this Spina Pishaka in combination of childlike learning with pictures made me enjoy it. Also, I believe the people in the United States treat me better in public when I wear a cat humor t-shirt. I get treated better in a cat humor shirt compared to wearing a business suit. Afghans most certainly like and respect cats more than dogs. Cats are regal, rare to spot, and keep down the rodent issue. However, to the rest of the locals, the name white cat was beginning to be synonymous with the person who makes and delivers ID cards. ID cards are worth their weight in gold to an Afghan because no Afghans here have any proof they were even born. No government to issue an ID, no hospitals or birth certificates. These people don't even have plumbing, and their houses are made of mud. These were not good-looking ID cards either, with the simple words printed in English. Alleged name was enrolled into the biometrics system on this date. Serendipitously, the way these dirt farmers looked at me changed. When we first got here, the people did not want their picture taken and would cover their face with their clothing. When Marines pulled out cameras to take pictures, a good majority of the kids would cover their faces, as young girls would run away. They do this because someone trained them to do it. Prior to the ID card incentive, we would have to take people's biometrics by force. Now I exchange with them their biometrics for ID cards, an invaluable techne. On the following patrols, I would take with me the printed ID cards to be delivered to the locals. I threatened that if any Marines from Transfomer are hurt, no more ID cards. The Afghan shadow government appeared to have exchanged our safe passage for the delivery of the ID cards. The pestering chant of the children changed from Chaklet Raka to ID card Raka. Often kids would ask me to sing along with the folk song PB Shirini. As they sang the chorus, I learned the song from YouTube because it was a well-searched Pashto song with simple lyric to beat ratio. I noticed that PB Shirini was popular in several languages and countries. Plus, it was an ancient love song. It's about a man asking a woman to marry her. Here are the lyrics. Sweet lady with a yellow flower, place your red shawl in both of your arms upon me. Either make me one with yourself or make me your red shawl so that I may rest upon your hair. Sweet lady with a yellow flower, place your red shawl and arms upon me. Come, let's gamble with our hearts. Either you lose your heart or I lose my heart. Sweet lady with the yellow flower, but my beloved is like a child. She swears 100 times upon a single matter. Sweet lady with the yellow flower, place your red shawl and your arms upon me. Later, we came back from patrol and Mobile Assault Platoon MAP had dropped off several detainees for me to process. Source from PB Fires. I had questioned many detainees, however, I am not an interrogator. I can't do things that involve coercion. I'm only a tactical debriefer, better trained than the average Marine in questioning and elicitation techniques. Importantly, if you are within the limits of the law, it's an art, limited to your imagination. In Transformer, I have a little mud goat shack, which I called the question hut, or detainee shack. An armed Marine stood guard over the detainee while I interviewed one at a time. Slick, no protective gear or weapon. Most detainees claimed to know nothing until the hours of translation attempts with tired GQ. Most of the time, I just got useless information because the person was wrongfully suspected. To correct, to complain, to teach, and to brag, these are some pillars of elicitation. You need to rationalize and minimize what they did. People need a very good reason before admitting. Sometimes I could get them to admit more than they are willing. For example, when asking them about mine emplacement, they would state, I know nothing. I ain't Taliban. Look at my hands. Look at my hands. Then I say, I believe you're not Taliban because my computer hasn't found your fingerprints yet. But tell me, how do the fighters plant mines? If they answer that how in any way, I get more follow-on questions like, how big of a hole do they make? How deep do they dig? How much wire do they use? Where do they get the wire? Where might you go to buy wire? Where would you buy wood boards for pressure plates? Who has saws to cut boards? Are they hand cut or machine cut? Who in Sangan has a table saw? You would be surprised as to how much people are willing to respond to the questions of purchasing behavior like any good consumer. Of the hundreds of detainees I have questioned, most of them are scared shitless. Some are too high to notice what's going on, and then there are those few, those hardcore madrasa-trained foreign fighters who aren't fazed by a guy who paints his face white and thinks he's a cat. I have stared straight into the faces of these terrorists and thought, this dude would totally kill me if he had a chance. When you stare into the abyss stares right back at you. July 29th, 2011. The power is back and the water is too. I stayed up late doing my laundry in an 81mm mortar illumination can. After further questioning of locals, the poorer Shockside tribe in the Brown Zone informs me that the Transformer electricians charge them money for power, and all the other tribes are not charged. Upon questioning Muhammad Isa, who had been running the racket the whole time, he admitted he had charged all tribes equally, except his tribe. The Alakozai gets free power. I brought up to him the concerns of the poorer tribes such as the Norzai and the Shocksai, claiming that the power is free and belongs to the state and it's unethical for him to do this. He asked me flat out in simple Pashto that even GQ could understand. White Cat, why do you give a fuck? And I said, I really don't. I want to stay alive. I have 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. I want to make it home to them. Muhammad Isa understood, and in some ways he was pretty gangster because I don't even think Sharifullah knew about him charging people for power. I have a nagging suspicion that whoever destroyed the smaller transformer up north might have been sending a message to the electricians. July 30th, 2011. The main difference between a terrorist and a mercenary is money. Today is my first official patrol as a squad leader in Sangin, and it was my most frightening patrol I've ever been on in Afghanistan. We stepped off in the morning to Papa 8 Quebec sector with the mission of putting PSYOPs flyers on compound walls and throwing pro-government magazines into compounds. Papa 8 Quebec is not in our area, it's in 1st platoons. However, my mission for the patrol and Captain O'Shea okayed it. So we set off, partnered with the ANA, into the southeastern portion of Papa 8 Quebec sector and split up into 2 elements. Mickey Mouse's element went to provide overwatch as we traced the targeted string of compounds in Papa 8 Quebec. We made it to the compounds and began our work. All the compounds were abandoned. That was my second mistake. These compounds were especially suspect because they were blown up and abandoned. My first mistake was going into 1st platoon's area. I didn't want anything to do with posting flyers on those compound walls, so I just threw magazines over the walls into the compound. We kept about a 5 to 7 foot gap away from the walls, trying not to walk along the compound walls if necessary. I had an ANA soldier behind me, and the ANA notoriously, among other bad habits, don't travel on the cleared marked path. I reached 15-foot gap between 2 mud homes, and I knew there was a danger area which led to the thick tree line. I covered the gap until the ANA soldier bumped to me and acted as if he was covering it. I moved past the gap and we carried on with the patrol. I suddenly heard a soft bang like a dry ice bomb. I quickly turned to see a small cloud of dust, and laying on his back was an ANA soldier not moving. Several thoughts raced through my head in a split second. My first thought was we were getting shot at through a danger area that I had just crossed. The next thought was the ANA soldier had a negligent discharge in the dirt. But then it became apparent as I saw the ANA soldier lying on the ground with the blown off top of a yellow jug next to his legs. Then it clicked. I grabbed my radio. IED strike, IED strike. I yelled to Ebling, my sweeper, to sweep up to him. Due to my proximity, I couldn't assess the soldier for injuries. He was just laying on his back, groaning, and being overly dramatic, as most Afghans are. As much as I wanted to run up and help, I knew that would be a stupid move. My biggest fear was the fact that IEDs are probably all around us. And if 1, then 3. And if there is 1, there will be 2. Ebling swept up to him and assessed him. He was fine and able to stand up. It happened to be what we call a low-order detonation, when the homemade explosive doesn't or partially explodes. It happened to be what we call a low-order detonation, when the homemade explosive partially explodes. The blasting cap was the only thing that went off, and he was lucky. I told Ebling that we need to get the fuck out of here. There was no reason for us to be here anymore. Thank God everyone was okay, and if the IED went off as it was intended to, it would have been a bad day. I certainly would have been in the blast radius and taken shrapnel, and the soldier might have died or at least have been an amputee of some sort. Then we would have to call a medevac and find a safe place for an LZ. It turns out later that 1st platoon doesn't even go near that area because it's known for IEDs. I got reprimanded by Blackfoot Command over the radio for crossing into 1st platoon's area. Specifically, that was the same place that my friend Yarbrough lost his legs. This was the first time I have walked us into an ambush. At the end of the day, God was on our side, and I am never going to Papa 8 Quebec again. That experience was much worse than being shot at, and I know that the soldier learned his lesson to stay on the cleared path. When we got back to Transformer, the ANA commander heard the story and began repeatedly whipping all of the Afghan soldiers with a leather belt for stepping on IED. I can't make this up. The reality is stranger than fiction, I thought as I watched this truly psychotic Afghan commander lash his soldiers. This is horrible. How could we ever convince the people of Afghanistan that their government is legitimate when we want to force these overlords on them? Sergeant Curry, the Afghan soldier who stepped on the IED, was sent away shortly after and never seen again. July 30th, 2011. A good gunnery sergeant once said to me, "If ifs and buts were tits and nuts, we would all have a Merry Christmas." We took the night easy and occupied a local's garden in the village of Mullah Khan. To the west side of the garden, facing the green zone, was a canal that runs north to south. Mickey Mouse had a great idea to cut down bamboo reeds that happened to be growing in the garden and lay them on the canal running 25 meters north and south of our position. This was to alert us of anyone to sneak up on us from either direction. Later in the night, we heard the crunching of the bamboo to the north in a white light. I sourced 2 Marines to sneak up and grab him. In the process, the Marine's foot splashed in the water, scaring away our stalker. Mullah Khan is the safest village in our area, and killing somebody, given the situation, would cause problems. 300 meters deeper into the green zone, it would have been okay to shoot him. Usually, our procedure is to move into a different position once night falls, but tonight we didn't. It is good to trick the enemy and change things up. Later on, around 04, we heard 2 big explosions to the northeast, out into the desert. Turns out that the Talibans destroyed 2 smaller power transformers. Now the people of Sangin have no electricity again, and we have no water to take showers or wash clothing. This was our second electrical denial of service attack. July 31st, 2011. "Welcome to my parlor," said the spider to the fly. My friend Sergeant Fetter came to Transformer. I have known him from the tactical debriefer course in Virginia. He is part of the respectable Marine Corps PSYOPs and not the bearded Army soldier. He gets around to as many PBs as he can. He's also an 03 infantry, like myself, but he is now Marine Corps PSYOPs. He brought a 15-inch speaker and power source that he takes on patrol in a backpack. I didn't get a chance to go on patrol with him, but he let me take the speaker and tape recorder with several messages pre-recorded on it. It was heavy, at least 40 pounds, and awkward to hike around. The purpose of me taking the speaker was to inform the locals of the community Shura that we are hosting the next day at PB Transfomer. I played the message about the Shura to the places we stopped at, along with several other messages. The patrol was during the middle of the day, and at that time, no one was out of their compounds. But when I began playing messages, the people came out of their houses like zombies and slowly making their way to my location. They sat down in the tree lines and listened to all the messages like it was a rock concert. One of the messages was about how the Taliban are failing. Another was about how the cowardly Taliban are killing locals. And one was the Afghan national anthem. Further on in the patrol, we were invited for chai at the courtyard of a mosque. The locals that invited us wanted us to play the Islamic call for prayer over the mobile speaker at 1300. I said I would do it. It just so happened I had a recording of a famous mullah speaking about drugs being against Islam. It wasn't a prayer, but it would work. And at 1300, I put the speaker up on the wall and began playing the mullah's speech. The locals thought I was going to play some Islamic prayer. I informed the locals that this recording was a mullah, and at first they were pleased, and the locals started coming out of their compounds. As the speech went on, 8 minutes long, they squatted down and listened. Then they became skeptical, and some started to leave. The initial locals who asked me to play the speaker began to cringe, realizing the mistake they had made. I played the whole speech, and some wanted to bitch to me, but given the situation, realized they couldn't. They asked me to play the speaker in the mosque, and I had played a religious piece of media. Naturally, the demographic of the audience was 100% poppy and marijuana farmers who make most of a living on the drug trade, not too receptive. The average Afghan I meet hates the drug trade, and almost every family has a few members who are heroin addicts, but it keeps them from starving. August 3rd, 2011. Terjiman Nishta. Our Terp, GQ, quit for a few reasons. One was because he was denied leave, and on top of it, the ANA commander stole GQ's camera. We all know that it was the Afghan commander without a doubt, and we even got Captain Ahmed to come here and deal with this situation. The camera was never recovered, so we took GQ to Fob Jackson to get him dropped off. GQ was lazy as shit. He made up excuses as to why he couldn't patrol and was belligerent, and sucked as an interpreter. I didn't feel bad that he didn't get leave, and I was happy to get rid of him. However, the fact is that the shady ANA commander stole his camera. That's what made me angry. I know that the ANA would steal our gear without hesitating. August 5th, 2011. I am patrolling every day, it feels like, and I look forward to the times when I just stand guard post and I get a chance to sleep. Sleep, tobacco, showers, air conditioning, and some MP4 files of television shows like True Blood, Game of Thrones, and journaling, doing my laundry in an ammo can, and shitting in a plastic bag are the only luxuries I must look forward to. Last night, I took my squad out to conduct a night OP again at Quebec 5 Hotel near Kalawal. I had a specific compound in mind. We set up our night OP and gave a homeowner a crank radio. During the night, we kept watch. Ebling asked me about my time in Iraq.
Every once in a while, Big Dude and some of the other guys know bring it up from time to time. It was such a big deal. Big Dude think that we still in Iraq. What's your time like in Iraq? You obviously no stranger getting shot at. Plus, you seem to walk the line of stupidity and bravery.
That's fair, I said. Let me tell you all about it this one time. Chapter 9. Tunnel Rat. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Psalms 23:4. If you research the oldest or largest cemetery in the world, you will receive the same result. The Wadi al-Salam Cemetery, located in the holy Shiite city of Najaf in the country of Iraq, expanding over 917 hectares or 3.5 square miles in area. The cemetery is not at all like an American or Afghan graveyard. To have a better appreciation for the cemetery battle of Najaf is to have an intimate understanding of the Arab burial practices. The dead are entombed in brick boxes and contorted into the crouched praying position, facing Mecca, signifying the grave owner was a large white shower tile on a brick gravestone with the owner's name painted in Arabic. Some grave boxes are attached to the back of a brick gravestone, making the grave box look like a chair. Covering the top of the chair box was a layer of plaster. Some grave boxes were all concrete with a flat concrete top and slightly extended on all sides. Additionally, mixed on the concrete for decoration was multicolored broken shower tiles. However, for the chair-like grave boxes, they stacked the bricks of later dead relatives on top of the previous generation, allowing the family stack to rise as tall as 15 feet. The Najaf cemetery was a random forest of grave stacks. In between the stacks exists a low-lying maze of single-box graves densely packed with miniature dome-like mosque mausoleums, as far as the eye can see. Due to the off-putting bright colors of the domes, the whole field was like an uncanny circus town of the dead, and that was just the surface level. Below the surface was a network of catacombs that went deeper into tiered levels, each level consisting of a tunnel stacked with arched cubbyholes lining each side, in which the dead bodies were placed flat and sealed with bricks. The catacomb system was interconnected in unexplored ways and allowed the enemy fighters to maneuver underground, appearing at any moment. There, the men of the 1st Battalion, 4th Marines fought Muqtada al-Sadr and his Mahdi militia of Iranian mercenaries in a 30-day siege to take the city. The cemetery battle for Najaf was the first time since Vietnam the United States has engaged in full-scale tunnel warfare. Before I was a white cat, I was a tunnel rat. August 5th, 2004, on Najaf, Iraq. "Wake up, 81s, get your gear on, get to the trucks. The police station's been attacked," said Staff Sergeant Scarecrow. Shortly later, the morning breeze hits my face when riding in an open-top, high-back Humvee towards downtown Najaf. I felt the excitement enter my body as I listened to the audible pops of AK-762. Clutching the pistol grip of my rifle, I kept thinking, this is it, the day I'll get my combat action ribbon. Then all my senior Marines will stop hazing me and treat me better. We approached the Revolutionary Circle, an iconic traffic circle in the city, across from the southeast portion of the cemetery. All 9 of the 81's vehicles cordoned off the traffic circle and we dismounted to seek cover. Directly to the north of Revolutionary Circle was a 7-story hotel that we took fire from upon dismount. One Marine in the platoon was shot in the leg and taken out of the fight. I went hiding behind a construction pile of bricks and dirt as we began to fire at the hotel windows. Approximately 30 seconds after the fighting had ceased, a stray round came out of what seemed like nowhere and struck the dirt directly in front of my face. While wiping my face from the sting of dirt, one of my senior Marines yelled out, "You popped your cherry, Sega!" More Marines from the battalion began to arrive to our position. Some Marines cleared the hotel and took the rooftop position. We waited for about an hour, and then we got the call to help recover a downed helicopter, a Huey that was shot in the fuselage by a 7.62 round. The 81s was in charge of the helicopter crash recovery. We got back to our high-vac Humvees and drove to the crash site. It was cyclic right in and out with all the machine guns as the helicopter crew chief grabbed all the necessary gear and ran to our vehicles. We headed back to Revolutionary Circle and went firm on the road to the east of the cemetery, separated by a 9-foot wall. Most of the day we hung out behind the wall and shot at enemy fighters in the cemetery from shooting holes in the wall. At 1800, we received word from the battalion that the mayor of the city is allowing us to take the fight wherever we want to rout the militia of over 800 men. Therefore, we receive word that we are to enter the cemetery, get online, and kill anything that is not American. Our 81mm mortars were 3 hours away in the city of Diwania, which we had traveled as a reaction force. Our platoon sergeant began walking up and down the line of the 81's Marines with a wooden ammunition box as he stuffed the cargo pockets of us boot or junior Marines with grenades. Some of us boots were given in AT-4 rocket launchers to be mules, and I was too. I couldn't believe that this was happening. I was terrified as we stepped off into the cemetery, got on line, and began to push towards the northwest. With the 81's platoon to the north, Alpha and Bravo companies to the west of our position, and Charlie company to the south. The eeriness was overwhelming as the unsecured light sheet metal doors of the underground catacombs clanked, open and closed from the tunnel winds below. It was the most horrifying place I've ever been in my life. The heightened sense of alertness was overtaking us as each step took us deeper into the uncharted city of the dead. There was no noise other than the clank of metal doors. Foot patrolling 100 meters in, we made it to a wall that was separated by a 2-lane paved diagonal road that cut through the southern third of the cemetery. As soon as I got within 15 feet of the wall, our platoon started getting fired upon by the Mahdi militia from the opposite side of the road, approximately 50 feet away. I didn't have a chance to get off any shots. It happened quick. I just took cover until it was over. It was fast, less than 10 seconds, and then the enemy egressed north. We remained behind cover and communicated to each other. Nobody was shot or injured. I pat myself down and look for blood. No blood. Then I see my buddy Canary was next to me. He was hyperventilating bad. I was excited and still buzzed on adrenaline, but I asked him if he was okay. He was shooken up and didn't respond with anything verbal. We waited for about 30 minutes, and Scarecrow informed us. The battalion's going to prep the rest of the cemetery with artillery before we cross the diagonal road. Then the sound of artillery came. The whoops, cracks, booms. Then we got the signal to cross the road and continue our advance north. As we did, we pushed slowly. Then the gunfire started erupting from the north in what seemed like all directions. RPG rounds began to airburst, and the number of graves and obstacles was good for cover. However, it slowed movement. Wading through graves is how it felt. Especially difficult with a rocket launcher slung across my back. The similar look of every grave stack on the horizon distorted my orientation as fighters dressed in all black would streak the distance. All I knew is that I was staying on line with the section of Marines I could see. We just kept pushing as I followed Scarecrow's voice until we got pinned down bad. Scarecrow was contorted behind a grave box as we took a beating of rounds. RPGs overshooting our position and attempting to airburst. A junior Marine named Cheese fired his AT-4 rocket while I was slightly in the backblast. I thought I was dead because everything went white and the noise disappeared. As my senses came back, it turns out that Cheese missed the shot, but the sound of the blast created a lull in the enemy gunfire, and we began to push further north. We made it about 25 meters and came to a dirt road that cut through the cemetery. "Sergeant Reynoso's been hit!" yelled one of the Marines. Scarecrow called back, "Is he wounded?" "KIA!" shouted back the voice. Behind the grave box, I began to take shots at the black silhouette fighters tracing the distance. "Stay down!" issued Scarecrow in a defeated voice. Scarecrow and us Marines linked up near Reynoso's body. The fog of war is thick. We realized out of the platoon of over 70 Marines, there was only 8. Our radio operator told Scarecrow, "I just got comm back, and the battalion is pulled back to the diagonal road. We are out here alone," he did not say. We reasoned in silence. Scarecrow sourced 2 Marines to go back and tell the others. The severity of the situation dawned on us. Our tunnel vision and lack of working communications in this uncharted hellscape had caused us to separate and continue to push dangerously deep into the enemy hands. Hiding behind the row of grave boxes, Scarecrow said, "Sega, go get Reynoso!" "Where is he?" I yell. "Right there, in the road in front of you. Look!" as Scarecrow extended his long finger towards the body. I turkey peeked out into the road and felt the rounds ricocheting near the fallen Marine. I froze. I looked back at Scarecrow with a pale face. Without afterthought, Scarecrow looked at the Marine next to me and said one word. "Fawn." I now have the privilege of survival to bear witness and tell you the story of Lance Corporal Justin Vaughn. He earned a medal that day. Without hesitation, under heavy enemy gunfire, Vaughn jumped past me into the road and pulled the body back behind the grave where I was. I grabbed Reynoso's forearms while assisting in pulling my hand's loose grip due to the blood covering his arms. Reynoso had been shot twice, once in the neck as he grasped at it with his hands while falling to his knees on the dirt road, leaving his forearms bloody, and then one shot dead center to the forehead. Blood was getting on my forearms and legs of my camis from moving the body in a worm-like crawl. Inching forward, the body was finally behind the grave box. There, Vaughn began to act. I was impressed and proud. Without talking, Vaughn took Reynoso's flak jacket, Kevlar helmet, and rifle off the body, compiled them behind the grave box for me to carry. Vaughn picked up the body with the fireman's carry and began moving south, the rest of the Marines providing covering fire as he moved. During covering fire, I realized I was out of ammunition. Scavenging through Reynoso's flak jacket, I found 4 full magazines, which I placed into my pouches and sent the bolt home on my rifle on a full magazine. I picked up Reynoso's rifle, stood up and fired both rifles at the same time. I bent down and picked up the flak jacket and took off south, linking up with the other 5 Marines. The RPGs came screaming in and rounds kept cracking in our direction. Huddled behind a gazebo-like mausoleum, Vaughn had dropped the body and was breathing hard. Aside from the constant hail of gunfire, the 6 of us stared at the body without uttering a word, making a silent battle between us as to who should carry the body from here. No words spoken, just quick glances and looks away. Hanging over us was the unnerving feeling of absolute childlike vulnerability. After catching his breath, Vaughn reached down and painstakingly repositioned the limp, lifeless corpse as brain matter poured out of the exit wounds of Reynoso's skull. Like water from a low-volume garden hose slapping the concrete on a hot summer's day. Onto the ground in Vaughn's utilities. Gray chunks flopped and red drizzled out as I followed the morbid blood and brain matter trail. While horrifying, the situation almost felt spiritual. Watching Vaughn felt like I was watching Jesus Christ himself carry the cross through hell while bearing our sins of war. A feeling came over me. You must watch. We just kept heading south and putting more graves between us and the sound of gunfire. Had the enemy known there was only 6 Marines, they would have rushed us. However, we had fought so hard up to that point where Reynoso was killed that the enemy most likely thought that they were still fighting the entire battalion. Caught up between grave boxes with a rocket launcher strapped across my body, rounds snapped and impacted the plaster graves and bricks around me. Adding to the fear and adrenaline, Vaughn dropped Reynoso again as he fell. He got up, remounted the body on his back, and carried on. We were 500 meters alone in the cemetery as twilight hit. We painstakingly made it to the diagonal road, and a feeling of slight relief came over to me to see the rest of the platoon. Some gathered around Reynoso's body and said a prayer. One punk-ass corporal, unknowing of the previous situation, began to chastise Vaughn for being a pussy because Vaughn was hyperventilating and sitting down from exhaustion in 120-degree weather. I was angry, but I kept it to myself. Quickly, darkness came. Our platoon got out of the road and went firm on line in the cemetery against the wall on the south side of the diagonal road where we were first decisively ambushed. That night, I didn't sleep. I was next to Vaughn and kept watch for him because he was dead tired. Vaughn and I's squad leader was out of the fight because of dehydration and his muscles cramping badly. He was taken away in a vehicle medevac. Vaughn was my only squad member I had here with me in the graveyard. Another Marine in my platoon from Reynoso's squad wanted me to give up Reynoso's magazines to them because Reynoso was their squad leader. At that point, we were low on 2 things: ammunition and water. I gave them hell about it, which created a fist fight until they gave up trying to take the rounds from me and simply just threatened me with non-judicial punishment. Didn't matter. I stayed next to Vaughn as he slept in the sitting position. I kept watch all night through the green hue of night vision. How could I sleep given the rich iron smell of blood that saturated our uniforms? August 6, 2004. When metal shrapnel from a mortar round flies over your head, it sounds like 100 people throwing car keys at you. 0500 before the sun crested, the call for prayer was wailing over the loud Moss speakers from every marionette in the city. Carrying over the graveyard, the singing was beyond uncomfortable. Directly after the call for prayer ceased, a low audible thunks of 60mm mortar fire from the distance. A few seconds later, we heard the whistling mortar rounds right on top of us. "Incoming!" the sound alerted, keeping our heads down while splaying into the prone position. The cracks of mortar rounds directly impacting the diagonal road in a perfect linear mission. The car keys went flying over our heads. The Mahdi militia had 2 good mortar teams. One with 3 60mm mortars and one with a 120mm mortar. They had a fire direction center team and plotting boards for more geometrical precision. About an hour later, Scarecrow came over to our position and said, "You and Vaughn are going to be in Sergeant McMuffin's squad. We're going back across the diagonal road. We're linking up alongside Charlie Company. We're going to continue to push northwest." "We have to go back in there?" my fear blurted out. Scarecrow put his hand on my 19-year-old shoulder, looked me dead in the eye, and said in a chilling, matter-of-fact tone, "Yes, that's your job, Marine. No one else is going to do it for you." Pushing in the cemetery, not even 25 meters, my new squad leader, Sergeant McMuffin, stood on top of a grave box and his fat ass busted through the plaster seal, stuck in a grave box, violating the bones of the perished, while screaming at the top of his lungs across the battle space. It took 3 Marines to pull McMuffin out of the grave. He had slipped a disc in his back and was taken out of the fight on a vehicle medevac. Now we know not to stand on top of the grave boxes with plaster seals. We junior Marines in McMuffin's squad received another squad leader as we pushed north in the sea of graves. Not much resistance as yesterday because the battalion continued to airburst artillery fire over 500-meter sections of graves at a time. After the artillery, then we would push. At first, our senior Marines were having us clear out the tunnels below. I'll never forget his words.
"Get down there, Sega shit. I got kids,"
my new squad leader said as I went down into the tunnel to clear it out. I didn't go too far from my first underground catacomb. Taking off the rocket launcher prior, I descended the weather-worn brick steps leading 10 feet underground into a tight 2-foot-wide catacomb. My flashlight from my rifle shining as I squeezed the pressure pad on the forward broomstick grip. Time stood still while moving in the underground Arab world of the dead. I went no further than 30 feet inside of the catacomb. Arched cubby holes of dead bodies lined each side of the tunnel. Then the tunnel led to another staircase. At the bottom was another tier of the dead's berthing. It gets colder underground, but not a good cold. I felt like a little kid facing the dark of the unknown basement below. Only the monsters are very real. How far am I going to go? Had anyone thought this through? What if I get injured? I wondered while peering as far down the tunnel until the light bends or disappears into the pure abyss of distance, like staring into the eye of an underground beast. I didn't have the balls to go further. I didn't go that far deep nor encounter any enemy fighters in the tunnel, and thank God, I returned to the surface with the sun blasting in my face and said one word. Clear. Within a few hours, an Alpha Company Marine broke through the steps leading down a catacomb, and he was trapped due to a stairwell collapse. It took a rope to get him out, since he was at least 15 feet below ground. Now, the physical entry of catacombs was over, as per higher command. It made no difference to the enemy fighters. They would still take shots at close distance to us and disappear down the tunnels, like funnel spiders. The only thing we could effectively do is shoot and throw grenades down the catacombs in hopes the explosive pressure would collapse the brick staircase or ancient tunnel. Thumb the safety clip, pull the safety pin, toss in a frag, and move on. Flamethrowers would have been ideal, especially to eradicate the massive camel spiders that inhabited the cool, dark underbelly. We pushed a solid 1,000 meters into the acres of grave stacks and low-lying mausoleums. Our battalion went firm on line at a particular point, with a line of 5-story buildings to the northwest, approximately 700 meters, and a big 7-story building approximately 1,000 meters west. Once security was set, us junior Marines were told we had to go back to the diagonal road and get resupplies of ammo, water, and chow. I passed off my rocket. The heat of summer was dangerous, and we needed water and ammo bad. Us Boots, or junior Marines, got together as a team of 14 and went back to the diagonal road by ourselves. Not a single NCO or senior Marine accompanied us. They were busy holding the front line as they took turns sleeping. For the remainder of the day, we Boots went back and forth to the road for resupply. Over 1,000 meters at a time, through a massive cemetery. The first time we went to the road, it was such a refreshment. I drank piss-warm water, but water nonetheless. I reloaded my mags and put across my body a few bandoliers of 5.56 rounds. I grabbed a package of plastic-wrapped water bottles and hoisted it on my left shoulder so my right hand could use my rifle. All us Boots were loaded up with one thing or another, and we made our incredible journey back to the battalion. About 250 meters heading north through the jungle of grave stacks, we began getting shot at from a catacomb entrance at close range to the south. After freezing yesterday at the sight of Reynoso's body, I never froze after that. I was way too tired to think. The Marines would fire some shots at the entrance. Then I was the first one up to the catacomb, avoiding the direct path of the doorway if possible. Once I made it to the doorway, I prepped the grenade and threw it down into the abyss of the dead. Whoomp! I could feel the ground convulse from the overpressure below. Next, I moved back to my case of water bottles, remounted them on my shoulder, and we carried on. Then we got shot at again. Now my fellow boot Marines were spoiled, expecting me to run up and throw a grenade down every suspect catacomb, which I did. The process looped, and we creeped through random patterns of graves. Primarily, the Mahdi militia were getting killed from artillery, an AC-130 gunship, and the twin Cobra helicopters circling the sky. This made evident with the dust-covered body parts we're encountering along our paths. Now the enemy's tactic is reduced to using tunnels to hit and run. Sometimes the Mahdi fighters would pop out from behind us, shoot and disappear down a catacomb entrance amongst many tunnel entrances, leaving us confused as to which hole they went down. Usually, a catacomb which they fired from had a browned out entrance of dust from a rifle recoil as a giveaway. All the while, sniper fire from the high-rise hotels in the northwest would harass us. One Marine named Reber had his package of water bottles shot while carrying it on his shoulder, exploding a few bottles and causing the water bottles to scatter about, unable to recover them as a case again due to the single wrap of plastic that combined the bottles with the pressure of quantity. What was badass was the low hum from heaven as the twin 20mm cannons rotated on the AC-130 gunship as a warm-up measure, followed by the continuous screaming as the rounds tore apart the grave stacks like a weed eater through grass, roaring like a dragon in the sky and making me appreciate the air support and how I hope I don't end up on the receiving end of it by mistake, keeping dispersion as we meandered slowly through the boxes while jets dive in and drop 500-pound bombs on larger mausoleums in the distance. Regardless of our superior guns, the enemy continued to play their propaganda through the mosque speakers of the north. The Mahdi militia psyops guy would taunt us in English about how we are Christian crusader pigs that will be slaughtered, and now we are cursed for violating their holy cemetery. The rest of the crowd work was in Arabic to motivate the Mahdi army, and followed with inspirational religious song that has a horse neighing in one part of the song chorus. Annoying, but I enjoyed watching the marionette of speakers get taken out by the numerous Hellfire missiles of the Cobra attack helicopter. Tired and hot, we made it up to the rest of the platoon and delivered the gear. At one point, the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Mayer, came to our position with the chaplain. The chaplain administered last rites for anyone requesting, while the battalion commander gave us an unflattering speech about getting us shaving kits so that we can shave our faces here in the cemetery. After the final resupply run of the day, we began getting mortared. "Incoming!" the Marines yelled and repeated after receiving word from the forward observer over the green brick radio. The forward observer was the voice of the woman pilot manning the AC-130 gunship. The Mahdi mortar team had established a hasty position in the mosque and began firing. I got into the prone position amongst the graves and waited. We heard the audible thunks from the north and the hair-raising whistle of the air traveling between the fins of the mortar rounds. Hanging suspense as the Doppler effect amplified the whistling to a nagging scream. Unless it's an airburst or a direct hit, I should be safe amongst the brick grave boxes, I thought. Corporal Abad in our platoon probably thought the same thing until he suffered a direct fire hit as the rounds cracked and concussed all around us. Abad was killed. A short distance away, Canary was in the tail end of the resupply. He didn't take cover in time. He received shrapnel in his legs, and he was taken out of the fight. The irony of mortarmen without mortars, taking casualties by enemy mortars. In fact, the primary amount of the battalion's casualties was a direct result of this skilled enemy mortar team and fire direction center. The mortar team was in the mosque to the northwest, and the gunships are not allowed to fire on them for some bullshit reason. We evacuated our casualties to the nearest dirt road and waited for Cat Platoon to speed in and take them out. Darkness began to fall in the evening and the day's gunfire ceased. I tried to sleep, but I couldn't sleep that well. Baptized in the blood of a Mexican and baked in the Iraqi sun, the metallic smell of my crimson desert uniform is nauseating. Do you believe in ghosts? The cemetery is extremely haunted. When keeping watch at night, I would feel watched, like somebody was directly behind me. At some points, I would hear a woman's voice in Arabic whisper into my ear. It wasn't a good feeling, and the voice seemed hostile. Things would touch me, scratch me, push me. Marines would see figures of people through their thermals and NVGs, shooting out a thermal image that wouldn't move, die, or disappear. The voices and sounds of movement that came from the tunnels below were beyond frightening considering the situation. Looking through the night vision, keeping our eyes out for the movement on the horizon or open entrances of the catacombs. August 7th, 2004. The sun came up after the calls for prayer in the distance along with the greeting of more mortar fire and car keys. Then us boots are sent back for another resupply run as we head south. The amount of rounds we fired at ghosts was statistically significant to merit another resupply. Marines are just giving me their extra grenades as we head towards the road. While en route, Lance Corporal Hamsley had a cute little puppy walk up to him with excitement. Feral dogs are commonplace in Iraq, especially in the cemetery with low people traffic and underground dens. Hamsley picked up the puppy and instantly put it down. "Puppy smells nasty as fuck," he expressed, while recoiling with a dry heave. The puppy followed him as we moved along. Through the graves, another 15 meters ahead was a body of an enemy combatant that had been missing the waist down. The torso of the body began to rock back and forth as not one but two puppies crawled out of the chest. Covered in blood and pink pieces of soft lung tissue, the pups pranced towards our general direction, wagging their tails in satisfaction, tainted with the taste of human flesh. Like pestering, creepy puppies from hell. Disgust and rancid shock is all we felt. After 50 excruciating yards of harassment, Lance Corporal Libby lost his constitution and shot and killed the three pups, which was the humane thing to do, considering that the country of Iraq has an issue with feral dogs packing up and hunting small children, drowning kids in the wadis to silence their screams. We made it back to the platoon with the resupplies, and we had received word that the enemy 60mm mortar team was killed. Also, the battalion is pulling out of the cemetery, and we'll return to Fob Hotel. The battalion commander couldn't come through with the shaving kits, so he's having the battalion pull out so we can go back and shave, said Scarecrow. We made it back to the diagonal road, loaded up in our vehicles, and sped back to Vase. Back at Fob Hotel, that's when we saw the horrendous pictures getting passed around. The pictures are of the enemy posing with Reynoso's Kevlar helmet, with the name tape visible on the back as they held it up. Some of the pictures involve kids handling weapons while kneeling on the helmet. Other pictures showed different mass-modi militiamen posing with it in various trophy-like ways. The photos were later disseminated and published in every major American newspaper. All because I forgot that fucking helmet. We saw some flashlights moving in the Afghan tree line 200 meters to our west. We shot a Green Star parachute from my M203 at it, and the lights ran away frantically. And that was just the first 3 days of the 30-day siege of the Battle of Najaf, as I ended my Iraq story with Ebling. Moreover, 1-6 is currently in Inkerman, and I can't wait until they get here to Transformer to relieve us. Once they get here, we should be patrolling less, and they should be here in a few days. Chapter 10. Identity Issues. Benjamin Franklin once said, "When you're good to others, you are your best self." August 7th, 2011. I went on patrol this morning again with more fear than usual. Yesterday, while I was on the evening patrol, Blackfoot Matt platoon was sourced to Transformer to confiscate my ID card maker. According to Geronimo, or battalion command, the locals are attempting to access Bob Jackson with the ID cards I make. However, no Marine in their right mind is going to allow a local to enter any fob in Sangan and go past the HESCO engagement pins. No local should ever have any access anywhere on a fob or patrol base except Transformer. Geronimo is scared, and biometrics for our ID cards initiative is done. Now I feel naked. I must keep the illusion that I still make and deliver ID cards. I'm sick of patrolling. It's mainly psychological, opposed to physical. Will I die today? Will I use my legs for the last time? Will this next step be my last? God protect us and keep us safe is a daily quick prayer. Late entry. One Marine was a hero in Alpha Company yesterday by an IED strike. I don't have a name or any more details. From Transformer, I patrol on, in a team of 4 separated by another team of 5 by sometimes as much as 300 meters, with no line of sight to each other. Leaving the wire with 9 U.S. persons, 4 less than the standard rifle squad, and the bare minimum needed to patrol. I have to do this because I'm the best man for the job, and it's an honor to lead Marines in combat. It's just me, in control of 9 Marines and in direct control of 4. Many Marines and former Marines would kill to be where I am. I get to do what others can only dream of. Then the reality and experience slaps me in the face as a reminder. I'm in a fucking minefield. There are very few glorious moments in war, and they come at a big rip-off price. Whose freedom am I fighting for? Not mine. Certainly not Americans. They're slaves to the system. Do I patrol for the freedom to live comfortably in security? Am I patrolling to protect the Afghan freedom to raise poppy to fund my death? Do I patrol because our partnering Afghan forces don't get completely murdered by the Taliban, since the ANA refused to patrol during Ramadan? It's not about glory, ideology, or freedom. I do nothing here to protect the freedom or interests of average Americans. While America is an imperialistic warrior society, most Americans are simply elitist children with no inoculation to violence. It's not because I want to help people and make a difference. I often wonder what difference I have made. It's not about my country or its leaders or the Marine Corps. It's not about my family or the Marine to the left or the right. It's because I couldn't see myself doing anything else. This is my animus. It defines me. I am a warfighter. My job is to win wars. If I was born an Afghan, I would be Taliban. I will never view things the same again, and I can't think of any reason why I should. Scarecrow's voice echoes in my mind. That's your job, Marine. Some people call that cognitive dissonance. On patrol, I investigated a smoke signal coming from a compound and found that it was nothing. However, the owner did have 8 60mm mortar fins in his compound, nothing to detain him over because he had collected them from the battlefield after they had been fired, are of no threat. All Afghans are scrappers, and most are hoarders. The man seemed concerned because of where we found the mortar dunnage. I gave the man a big hug and I told him that he was my humdiwal, or friend. We took the fins away, and after thoroughly searching the compound and carried on with the patrol, I get back to Transformer with a medevac bird overhead. Heading north with an armed escort going crazy on the minigun, our battalion snipers took 2 heroes. 2 shots, 2 kills. The Talibs have brought a talented sniper hunter team of their own, and just one more thing I have to worry about. I think the Talibs are tired of our snipers murdering their spotters. August 10th, 2011. Last night I called home for the first time in 3 weeks since being at Transformer. Calling home is more stressful than going on patrol. I listened to all the problems and happenings of which I have no control over and could not honestly tell her, my wife, that I'm safe because I'm not. I patrol a very dangerous part of the world and cannot predict the future. I hate going on patrol because it's very stressful. Every day it's a high-risk game of minesweep. The creeping thought invades my mind. A pink mist in a memory. Is that what you want to be when you grow up? Every patrol I lead, I must figure out on the move where a good place is to cross and worry if someone else has taken it recently. In every patrol, I micromanage the route. A common tactic of some Marines is to throw candy down the paths of interest, and if the kids don't go after the candy, don't go that way. I am the second man behind the minesweeper, and I carry 2 cans of Barbasol shaving cream to mark the trail because I generally go through 2 cans a day. I must worry that the sweeper sweeps the trail correct, or if I mark the trail correct. I must be mindful that I'm staying on the cleared path, and the Marines behind me are as well. A nagging question in your head is, if we take a casualty right here, is there an open field nearby that doesn't have corn in it to effectively land a medevac bird? I must be mindful of where the other element of my squad is in relation to mine for mutual assistance. Today we set off on patrol in Quebec 5 Hotel. It started off well until I had Mickey Mouse's element bound across me 150 meters away through a tree line. The 240 machine gunner in the squad, Tolfelson, set his gun down for security once the element had crossed the tree line. And when he did, pistol grip of the 240 sat on the edge of the wooden pressure plate IED, resulting in the opposite edge of the pressure plate being lifted out of the drying mud, leaving it exposed. Mickey Mouse notified me, and that element backed away to a nearby cornfield, leaving the 240 where it was. We called DOD, and upon investigation, they found 2 more, a total of 3 pressure plates in a triangular formation, designed to attack any victim that approaches from any angle. Also designed to exploit the human need to render aid. The IEDs were placed 8 feet away from the tree line in what appeared to be a common crossing point from previous patrols. I am sure that I have used that crossing point before, and I know for a fact that we had used that tree line to murder some Talibs when they ambushed us from Kalawal. I speculate that those IEDs were laid in response to Carlton's element effectively flanking the enemy, and when they ambushed our squad a few days back, or it was meant for Carlton's element. However, Carlton's element chose to wade up the canal to the enemy position and flank them, avoiding the IEDs. The 3 IEDs consisted of 2 10-pound jugs of homemade explosive and 1 15-pound jug of homemade explosive. The 240 machine gun was blown in place and went spinning off into the distance. Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team thought that the explosives didn't go off because the HME, or homemade explosive, was wet, probably due to the farmer flooding his field prior, but it could be that the IEDs were set into the mud in hopes of catching one of us because we travel through the mud. I am hoping that the IEDs were a few weeks old from when the Kalawal was much more kinetic. God was on our side that day. Mickey's element was extremely blessed. We are all confident that the IEDs would have went off. It would have been a terrible day. The one reason I can't honestly tell my wife that I'm safe because that could have easily been me. Fortunately, the 240 was recovered. The weapon and optics did not suffer any damage. Back at PB Transfomer, the captain wanted Mickey Mouse and I to eat dinner with the Transformer workers, so we did. The A&A commander, who I cannot stand, came over afterwards as we were drinking chai. The commander was out of his mind crazy and extremely homosexual. He stands by a shower area where the Marines shower in wooden stalls and just stands there, watching while he strokes his beard and smells his orange-like Afghan fruit that he holds in his hand most of the time. He sexually harasses me every chance he can. It's very unnerving, and I have never been someplace where so many men wanted to fuck me. His soldiers hate him, and for very good reasons. For example, he spanks them with leather belts and treats them like slaves. He also killed our friendly Afghan dog that came with us on almost every patrol since we found the dog. The dog once discovered an empty hole in the ground that had been covered with a board and buried by dirt. The Afghan commander bashed its head in with the rock and told us that the Taliban did it. Then that night, he came to dinner. We had a delicious meal of homemade wheat bread with basmati rice, lamb, and hot chai, made by 2 local Transformer shift workers. Captain O'Shea left the room to attend a radio meeting. Then, the A&A commander began to sexually harass me and taunt me about how he killed the dog we loved. When he really started hitting on me hard. This guy must be high on something, said Mickey Mouse. Objectively, I can't blame the people of Afghanistan for hating us when we force these psychopaths like him to be their overlords. In the best pashtu I can, I explained to this psycho fuck that I only like women, and he moves to the couch right behind me. From there, he slowly and deliberately poured a hot glass of tea on my neck and down my back. I stood up and introduced him to the neon belly ground and pound. My fist began connecting to his face as he curled up on the couch until Mickey Mouse pulled me off and I left the room. I could tell the A&A commander had never experienced a punch to the face or the feeling of pure experience of helplessness. The concept of a bald fist punch is very foreign to the Afghans and Iraqis, since they usually just open hand slap each other to settle disputes. The electricians were trembling in shock and tried to get me to stay to smooth things over. I left and I told O'Shea as I went to go journal about it. The Afghan commander went to Captain O'Shea to bitch about what I did. Captain O'Shea quickly put him in his place and reported the incident up to higher and did everything he could in his power to get the Transformer Afghan army commander replaced. But nothing ever came of it, and Captain Ahmed, the higher Afghan commander, laughed after hearing the story. I guess that pouring hot tea down someone's back is culturally acceptable is funny. Laying in bed that night in the dark, I heard the rack of a pistol and the monotone spin the pishuk. The Afghan commander came into where the Marine NCOs sleep to get his revenge. I slowly turned my face to the Afghan executioner, and I saw Mickey Mouse, smiling at me like he was Justin Bieber with a wheelbarrow full of dick, laughing his ass off as he racked his 9mm pistol for effect. August 11th, 2011. I took the patrol on the village of Mullah Khan. Good atmospherics, and the local road was being worked on. It seemed like the entire village was out watching what was going on. As a result, we went over to see how the progress of the construction was coming. Upon arrival, I got swarmed by the locals, and the bottom line is, one of those teenagers stole my camera right out of my pocket. Smooth criminals. We searched everyone, and that was still around, but there was no way for me to know who it was, and chances are they probably left. I'm pissed. This was the first time I've been pickpocketed. I'm mad. That was my personal camera and only camera. We created an observation post that night. We entered someone's compound, gave them a government crank radio, and sat up on the roof. No matter how much they bitched about the women being in the house, we ate their food, and to top it off, we shot illumination rounds from my M203, which definitely woke up the neighborhood. One of the Marines spotted a 2-foot by 2-foot thick metal wiring that holds up the HESCO barrier, being used as the grill, on which this poor family used to cook their food in a circular fire pit made of mud. I recalled from a few months back when the kids were stealing the HESCO barriers from Fob Inkerman. Maybe these parents are involved with sending their kids to rob our outpost defenses for the acquisition of better barbecue grills. I gave them a hand crank radio, and no matter how much the owner bitched, I just kept stating that we're staying here. The view was amazing, overlooking the village of Akunzatakil, and I suspect that the homeowner was Taliban support. He lied about his name and had some interesting tattoos. This house has also had periodic and blatant smoke signals coming out of it from the past. August 14th, 2011. I took the squad to a night observation post deep into the western killing fields, 600 meters northwest of Kalawal. We had never been out that way before. Additionally, we don't know what to expect, and I wanted to get a decent place before dark. Unfortunately, darkness fell, and we were stuck in a fork in the road, surrounded by corn and tree lines. It was not a very tactical place, and we heard people from a compound 100 meters down the road. Mickey Mouse suggested that we go and occupy their compound for the night, and I was inclined to agree. The moon was full, and lunar illumination was at 100%. We took the risk and traveled 100 meters down a well-traveled road to the compound. We surprised the homeowner and walked straight into his house. He seemed very happy to see the Marines. Where he lives at, I am sure he doesn't see the Marines that often, but we have Marines come to his compound at night. That was probably more shocking. That coupled with the fact that Mickey Mouse and I spoke some working Pashto. Plus, we satellite patrol in small elements, which makes us look like some sort of specialized unit. In contrast, the rest of the battalion goes out in a long, straight line of continuous Marines. A machine gunner's wet dream. The man ended up leading us to a compound that he owns but doesn't stay at, and he cleared it out for us. We stayed there, and nothing interesting happened throughout the night. If that man was Taliban or a Taliban sympathizer, then he will tell everyone he knows that the Marines move at night. This will greatly help deter the Talibs from operating at night. Since we have been doing it, the results have been noted. I generally hate moving at night due to the IED threat, and only do it if it's necessary. If I could avoid moving at night altogether, I would, and most nights we don't. We got a tip about a source of a whereabouts of my camera. I got a name and location. As soon as I got this, I had Valdez's patrol, who were leaving next, go out to the location and get it. Valdez was reluctant initially to go, because this was not his planned route. When we ended up at the suspected village, he began to ask about the whereabouts of my camera. No answers. Then Valdez's squad began to search or ransack one compound, and threatened to search every compound for the camera. A local took off on his motorcycle and came back with the camera. Mission success. I got my camera back. Few crappy photos were taken on it, and no faces were able to be made out of all my previous pictures were erased, and it does not work anymore because the thief broke it somehow. But at least I got my camera back, and I feel better knowing that it's not in the hands of some dirty thief. Patrol Base Atul has been getting attacked almost nightly, with maybe one or two shooters taking pop shots at posts. The Marines from Bravo 2nd Platoon, who are located at Atul, respond with a lot of firepower. More Talibs have moved down south towards 2nd Platoon's area simply because they do not patrol it enough. They have over 60 Marines, and they push one patrol out a day. This has given the Talibs the much-needed freedom of movement, and verbal reprimands of 2nd Platoon's commander from Bravo's company commander, squawking over the radio. Blackfoot commander read aloud to 2nd Platoon's commander our Mohawk patrolling schedule as a guideline to follow. Bravo Company's commander has personally accredited Mohawk 2 for pacifying Kalawal. August 15th, 2011. An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. Viktor Frankl. When heading out on evening patrol en route to an overnight position, we notice a quick black smoke signal coming from a compound 50 feet in front of us. A thick, 5-second long, black cloud of smoke slowly rose over the mud house. They're asking for it, I thought. Then I took the squad to investigate the compound. Inside the compound was like walking into a hornet's nest. The compound's courtyard is a massive 10-foot deep pit apparently the locals hoard their trash in. Instant kid swamp, and one small child, about 9 or 10, stole my folded up paper map out of my cargo pocket, making it smoothly disappear. We frustratingly kept searching for the map while trying to control the bombardment of kids. Looking for my map, worried that the enemy will use it to understand our patrol routes and plant explosives. Twilight was quickly approaching. Mickey Mouse had reached a breaking point, grabbing a child pickpocket suspect and marching him outside in front of the family's compound. "Sergeant, Sergeant," said one of the Marines. I quickly exited the compound outside of the main entrance, where I saw Mickey Mouse standing there with the child in front of the family. Kids stopped buzzing. The entire family gathered around the father and mother 30 feet away, no words spoken by them. A silent standoff. It reminded me of walking into a sheep's pen and watching the sheep quickly move from the far corner, except this family didn't look scared at all. They looked hard as Mickey pulled out his 9mm pistol from his leg holster and began to slowly raise it to the boy's head. This was all my fault. worrying myself and others to death over problems we don't have. I should have not have been so dramatic or stubborn about the map or searching the smoke signal. I felt like I led us into a trap. I had awoken an ancient spirit in Mickey Mouse, one that he was trying to keep suppressed this whole time and saying, a state of mind he had picked up in Ramadi, Iraq many years ago. Mickey, no. I softly spoke as I briskly approached the mouse, using my hand, gesturing his pistol back into the holster. It's just a map, Mickey. It's just a map, man. It's okay, these people can't even fucking read. Half the Marines here can't even fucking read a map. These kids, they steal everything they can. We've been okay. We'll be okay. This is my fault. It's my fault. Let's go. Darkness is coming. We gotta go. The young boy turned around and looked at us with an emotionless face. Bending down to his eye level, I growled at him in Pashto. Zawarams makarasa lek! I want my paper, boy. The little shit smiled at me like the devil, slowly turned and casually walked to his family. The family acted unfazed, as if this was not the first or last time this will happen. We continued with the patrol and never talked about it since. I felt like I walked us into an ambush. August 17th, 2011. The squad leaders and team leaders from 1-6 Weapons Company are here. They seem like cool guys with quite a bit of experience, and in this Marine Corps, experience is staying in. They are motivated to go out on patrol with us, and we take them out. It's different patrolling with the Marines and not a typical 4-man kill teams. Belated entry. 2 days ago, a Marine from Charlie Company stepped on a pressure plate IED. He's now a double amputee. Also, the local contractors who are working on the Mulakan Road were attacked by the Taliban the next day. I went to investigate the scene. According to the locals, who are surprisingly helpful and not lying for once, told us the whole story. 10 fighters, 3 PKM machine guns, and 7 AKs, as they traveled on 4 motorcycles from the village of Pseudo-Correct. I got the entire breakdown of the firefight and how it happened. Upon conducting tactical site exploitation, I found 2 pieces of brass from the AK because the Talibs understand very well that we can get their fingerprints. They took the time to pick up their brass from the expended rounds, and last night we set up a night OP overlooking the area where the contractors were working. The purpose of the attack was to convince people that the government was not stable and could not get roads built because the Taliban won't allow it. But that didn't stop the contractors from work when we were providing security. Yesterday, 1st Platoon found a tripwire IED connected to a 105mm artillery round in a cornfield. That's not good for us because we travel primarily through the corn. It's damn near impossible to see a tripwire in 7 to 8 foot tall corn. Corn is the one place that we travel through with little worry about IEDs, but now that's changed. There are other factors to consider. 1. It was in 1st Platoon's area, and I refused to go there again since the last incident we had with the Afghan National Army. 2. Not many locals are in 1st Platoon's area, and the ones left don't like 1st Platoon. I predict that if we find tripwires, it will be further in the cornfields near the tree lines where Mickey Mouse's team almost got smoked by an IED. I think this because I don't see many locals in those cornfields, and we may also see them up north around Kalawal. Now that's just more anxiety I much worry about as I live one patrol at a time. August 17th, 2011. All of our patrols are now partnered with the Marines from 1-6, and tonight we did a night OP. I took the squad deep into the western country to observe the river and anyone trying to cross it. We had 15 Marines with us, so I felt safer. Patrolling out in the corn, we stumbled upon the village, name unknown, that I had no clue what compound we were because my map didn't go that far north. But I had a GPS, and we had plenty of eyes in the sky available. Upon reaching the village, smoke signals began popping out of every compound once the locals stared at us like we were aliens. Clearly, this area has very little Marine presence, and the villagers were most definitely anti-Empire. They did not kid swamp us. The kids kept their distance. I brought some flyers and handed one to the first military-age male I saw, glanced at it, and ripped it up in front of me with a hard look on his face. This little Talib told me that he didn't know what a mine was, and without a turjuman, I could not express much. I told him that the Taliban are man-boy lovers in Pasht. He walked away quickly, and I began for a compound to occupy with a decent roof. Night observation post selection in the area is a simple science. Find the tallest compound with a lip that is suitable for a defensive position and make sure it has good observation, like a castle. If the lip is not tall enough, then a Pringle can roof or roof with a series of arches work just fine for cover and maintaining a low profile. Other factors to consider: one entrance into the compound to make sure it is secured from the inside. Also, rig a series of noise-making material to prevent an unannounced entry from outsiders. Additionally, noise-making materials, whatever was available, such as metal cans on strings or dried crunchy poppy stalks, were employed. I searched the village and found a compound that I wanted, and it had a smoke signal coming from it when we first arrived. It was a big compound that fit 3 families. I talked to one man who said that he was the owner. I told him that we were going to use his compound for the night. He said no, and I played my classic bait and switch. It works great with no interpreter and a crank radio. I wrote him a note that basically said, Mirajan, I gave you a crank radio. We're taking over your house. Now stop bitching. I know I'm cramping your Talib supporting's time for one night, but tonight your friends will not be planting mines. Love, White Cat and the boys. These people hold on to pieces of paper forever. Locals give and show me papers from Marines and the British before us who wrote them. It's funny to have a local hand me a piece of paper with something laughable that the past Marine wrote. I wish I could see the face on the next Marine who reads it. Next, I gave him a crank radio, which I wound up with a hand crank and turned to the first station with music, which he was very excited to receive. In that euphoric moment of his, I tell the squad to enter the compound and get to the roof. Approaching in the cluster of confused people and the chaos, I saw a man directly in front of me that shocked my intuition. Though most Afghans looked the same, this one irked me. I questioned who he was and he gave me a fake name. I accused him of being Sharifat, the guy operating closer to Transformer and fires. He was calm as a cucumber as he denied being Sharifat. Everything about him made me pause. After creating and posting flyers of the area's most wanted Taliban in the bathrooms of Inkerman a few months back, these men were big T Talibs, truly evil ones that direct and orchestrate the foreign fighters. These are the men that need to be killed on sight, no questions asked. I stared deep at his black turban, into his mid-30s looking face and the pitch black, long, neatly groomed beard. He was the approximate height and towered over me like most Afghans do. Everything about me made me scream, kill him. But I didn't, because we didn't have our hide system. It was getting dark. Nothing about the atmospherics of this village is good. We have a compound to search and defenses to set. We enter the compound and get to the roof as the owner began bitching at us, demanding Tarjiman, or interpreter, like an attorney or something. Some of the other locals started bitching as I asked them, where should we stay? I don't know, not here, in Pashto, they said. I gave you a radio, go away. They kept bitching and pretend that I didn't know what they were saying. Though limited, my Pashto has been improving great. I was not going to leave. The view was excellent, with a direct line of sight to the river. I finally saw it for the first time in real life. 300 yards away, across a flat grass field, a ferry barge partly pulls onto shore on our side of the Helmand River. Damn, we made it far. That river is beautiful, said Mickey. The only river crossing ferry in the district that could shuttle a car, or about 30 people at a time. Moreover, when working in the company COC as the intelligence chief, I wanted to have the power to source a patrol out here, but I could never influence anyone to go this far deep. No matter how much information I gave them, I would watch blimp footage for hours as this ferry shuttled foreign fighters across the river into the battle space. The feeling was surreal. I finally manifested this moment. I recall my time with the blimp operator as we watched the foreign fighters move across the river to the ferry, rope-towed communally by hand, with a rope that suspended across the length of the Helmand River. Given the opportunity, I highly contemplated taking a few Marines and myself, moving under the cover of darkness out to the ferry, cut the rope, and push that motherfucking barge down the Helmand River, in the same manner the ANA disposed of dead Taliban. Abruptly, my gorgeous view was interrupted by the bitching homeowner, telling me that we should stay in the mosque that is 7 feet away, the size of a 2-car garage, and at a lower elevation. Hey, we got a pile of carbon rods here from burnt batteries, called out one Marine. For that, I explained to the family that they could stay here with us, as some families do, but they wanted nothing to do with us. I told the owner to get out, and I didn't care what he thought. It made me appreciate the Fourth Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. Very upset, the families of the house went to the neighbor's compound 100 yards across the grass field to the south, and they were pissed, buzzing like hornets mad, but everything in my intuition told me that I am in the correct place to be. I began to plan a hasty night mission to take the river barge and make it disappear. I called in to hire to establish a 120 millimeter illumination round target on the river crossing. Radio communication with Transformer was patchy at best. Humid darkness fell quickly in the August Sangan sun. by the river, and the fleas began to bite. Unlike most calm nights, these people are still pissed and won't quiet down. Rambling noise from the compound across from us. We noticed lights in the tree line, 300 meters south from us towards the river. We called a 120 millimeter illumination round and turned day into night. Still, the locals continued to be loud as we could hear the kids play under the light of the burning can of thermite falling to the earth at the rate of 6 feet a second with a cute little parachute. About 20 minutes after darkness returned, one Marine noticed a guy in a white turban low crawling against a compound wall 100 meters away, popping his head up and down from the reeds. I should have killed him. I agree. You don't go low crawling near a military outpost in a war zone. However, escalation of force is so much more fun when time permits. We shined him with red lasers. Then I shot a white star cluster from my M203 grenade launcher to illuminate him. Finally, a Marine shot a red pin flare at him, and it went screeching over the roof of the noisy villagers, and they shut up. No more noise from them, as the dude just got up and ran out of sight. We had no more problems for the rest of the night. Considering the events, I opted not to carry on with my overzealous night mission. Instead, I stapled flyers in the compound and didn't sleep. We left before the beginning morning nautical twilight, as silently into the corn as we came. August 19th, 2011. Every night when I sleep, I dream of home. When I wake up, I'm in hell. 1-6 Marines have been leading the day patrols with just a few of us Mohawk Marines tagging along. I went on a morning patrol, and Mickey Mouse went on the afternoon. During the Mouse's patrol, one of the Marines found a piece of Soviet ordnance in a cornfield. They called EOD. It was an 82mm rocket in the casing. The casing was bent, so the rocket couldn't be retrieved, and it was apparently left in the cornfield or lost in transit. The Talibs don't shoot the rockets, but instead take the explosives out to make blasting caps, or IEDs. It was blown in place. Mickey Mouse told the locals that the Taliban put the mine in their fields, and the locals began to worry. August 21st, 2011. I went out last night with the squad from 1-6 for a night OP in the village of Mulakan. We are to provide security for the workers as they finished up the Mulakan road. Unfortunately, the only worker there was being a big bitch and refused to work because we wouldn't move our position to make him feel safer. I was the only one who had a working knowledge of the Pashto language. I had to do all the talking. He said that the Taliban are going to attack him from Pseudo-Karez and that we needed to push out into the desert. I was pissed that he was telling us how to do our job, and he was being a coward. He was only working 50 meters away from us, and the chances of us getting attacked at that location were slim. I tried everything I could to make him work, like walking him down the road to where he would be working. I told him that we just dropped a bomb on Pseudo-Karez, and he almost bought it. He refused to move, he refused to work. Then he left. 1-6 Weapons Company is garbage. Most of the NCOs are fat, and so are their Marines. Their discipline, tactics, maturity, work ethic, and common sense are on par with the Army. I gave up trying to micromanage that whole squad and correcting them on simple things like getting behind cover, keeping their gear on, keeping dispersion. Don't step there if it hasn't been swept. Don't walk exposed with no gear on with a red lens flashlight on your fucking head on the roof. Top it off, many of them have southern accents, so it really fits the motif, especially when they say their call sign over the radio, Welder. If these guys don't take mass casualties, I will be impressed. I got extremely tired of trying to give them common sense to save their lives. Now, I don't care about them. Natural selection will prevail. As of tomorrow, we, Mohawk 2, will be detached from 1-5 and attached to 1-6, who is attached to Bravo 1-5. I was originally with Weapons Company 1-5, then one section of my platoon was pulled from Weapons Company attached to Bravo Company, and once 1-6 Weapons Company arrived, the battalion got rid of us and gave us to 1-6. Now 1-6 Weapons Company is attached to 1-5 Bravo Company. For the average person, that's very confusing, and I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. Now I'm going to call myself an advisor from the 1st Battalion 4th Marines. I am guessing that we are staying here in Transfomer indefinitely until we leave, but other rumors have circulated. One is that we're going to be pulled back to Bravo and put at PB fires, and I hope that is not the case. Fuck that shit. That area is so fucked up. IEDs everywhere. We have a clearing operation in the village of Sarajegar again. Since we left, the ANA have been the only ones patrolling it, and that does not make me feel good about it. There is an obvious reason why we must clear it out again. That place is probably full of IEDs, and I don't want to venture into that urban maze. Starting tomorrow, we, Mohawk 2, will be conducting our own patrols again with different squads, not attached to 1-6. We have been cut down to 2 squads of 13, and I am with Carlton. August 23rd, 2011. We patrolled to the village of Kalawal, and the atmosphere was very positive. I taught locals how to play tic-tac-toe in the dirt with a stick and converse with them in my very slow-growing Pashto vocabulary. I went over basic arithmetic with some of the local boys with a stick, drawing in English numbers in the dirt. The kids are very smart and have a keen intuition of math. Many locals have guided us around their cornfields so we wouldn't trample through them and wanted claims cards for the previous damage we have done to their corn. I wrote a few claims cards and built rapport with the locals by playing Marines versus Taliban. We would pretend to be the Taliban fighters on the radio, and they would pretend to be the Marines. It seems to impress them that we know the call signs of the Talibs that operate in our area, as if they didn't broadcast their name on the civilian radio channels. They call me Sharifat, which is the call sign for the Taliban commander of the Northern Green Zone. The locals pretend to search me and ask me the same typical questions that Marines ask, point pretend guns in my face like I can neither confirm nor deny Marines do. I have become the person who enters a village where no one wants to do anything with us, and after 20 minutes of talking, I have a parade. This happened in Kalawal, the village we couldn't get into a month ago due to the fighting. And as we left the village, I heard an explosion to the northwest, and 20 minutes later, I was witnessing a medevac bird landing 200 meters away in a cornfield. I knew that someone patrolling out of PB Fahim had struck an IED. That's all I knew as I watched the medevac bird land in the field, escorted by a gunship flying overhead. I heard over the radio that it was an IED strike with 2 casualties. We carried on with our patrol as I noticed the blue chalk marks on the ground in common places we patrol. I've been noticing this trend for a while, but the blue chalk on the battalion used to give us for marking our path. It's very visible on the ground, but the only problem is it doesn't dissipate and stays visible on the ground for a long time. Unlike white foot powder, I use shaving cream because it dissipates within 24 hours and leaves very little residue. We have boxes of Barbasol shaving cream. When I got back from patrol, I took all the blue chalk and I threw it into the burn pit. The story with the IED strike today was interesting and involves a place that I have already been to. It was in Compound 2 on the border of Quebec 5 Hotel and Quebec 5 Juliet, where I took my squad and set up a night OP back on August 14th. Apparently, the compound owner there led the Marines from 1-6 inside, where he had his kids and livestock. The man talked to the Marines. His kids and livestock began to leave the compound. Shortly after, the man left. The Marines were alone in the compound. As the Marines were searching around, the Thor system began to blink its light. That only means one thing. It is jamming a remote band signal. As the Marine with the Thor walked into a different part of the compound, the IED went off. The IED was a remote-controlled IED, or RCIED, which is very rare here in Sangin, popular in Iraq. And luckily, the 2 Marines were not badly hurt. But almost everyone in the compound suffered concussions. The IED was placed to target the Marines who had come back to that compound or use it to search. I guess my squad left quite an impression on the man who let us use his compound the last time. However, I know where he lives. August 24th, 2011. I went to Inkerman to stage with all the attachments for the Sarajegar clearing operation. I couldn't use the phones because of 3 IED strikes, 2 near PB Atoll and 1 double amp in Alpha's area. The 2 near Atoll were from 2nd Platoon. 1 Marine stepped on a pressure plate and lost his leg. As his squad was carrying him out on a litter, another Marine struck a pressure plate. The second guy got lucky and just broke his leg due to the low-order detonation. These incidents put us in River City, and we could not call home. I've been hearing about how Sarajegar has turned into a shithole and is littered with command wire IEDs since Mohawk has not been patrolling there. I constantly look down at my legs and cherish them, wondering if tomorrow will be the last day. We are rolling out with about 50 Marines into the village, so it will probably scare away any triggermen. August 25th, 2011. We stepped off at 0500 and flooded the village of Sarajegar. The atmospherics here were very pro-ISAF and nothing interesting happened. The combat camera was with us as well as the psychological operations Marines that I had went to the tactical debriefer course with. They traveled up the day before from Fob Jackson. Clearing operation went well and most of the people were prior enrolled into the BAT system, indicating there's no population change. While slowly shuffling through the moon dust in the outskirts of the dry desert village, Mickey Mouse felt his left boot had gently hit the side of something solid. In the light, deep, dusty dirt, he looked down and noticed a rectangular, symmetric, plastic-wrapped pressure plate covered in moon dust. Mickey Mouse backed away and called it up to higher. The explosive was blown in place. It may have been a residual IED. Another thing that was interesting was that the ANA ran over a dead cow with their truck, and 2 ICOM radios came out of its intestines. Other than that, it's a very boring operation, and I'm thankful it was. August 27, 2011. The patrolling schedule has taken a heavy burden from us, as only 1 patrol a day. Valdez's squad went out today and found a terrain model of patrol-based transformer in the village that Sharifullah lives in. The terrain model was away from the compounds and near a trail. The terrain model was very well constructed with thin wires on little power lines. All signs point towards Sharifullah because it was very neat with attention to detail. That is what Sharifullah's personality is, always doing things right and meticulous with everything he does, especially making food. Sharifullah is the best cook out of all the transformer workers. Moreover, Sharifullah is in Kandahar right now because his daughter or friend, can't get the story straight, is sick or something. This month has been dragging on us, and I look forward to ending it so the worthless ANA can start patrolling with us again. As the days near the end of the deployment, I don't anticipate when I'll be going home, but instead look forward the day when we stop patrolling. At that point, I know I'll be safe. August 30th, 2011. Ramadan ended today, and the area is celebrating with generous amounts of food everywhere and kids employing firecrackers. It's like the area erupted in a firefight, but it's just firecrackers. The atmosphere was pleasant, and the locals were demanding that Spinny Pishak eat with them. The food was great, rice with sugar on it, and that seems to be what they eat for breakfast. The end of Ramadan is called Akhtar. It's like Thanksgiving with fireworks. August 31st, 2011. Carlton has been out of the picture lately because he's been sick with some sort of stomach virus, and I have been taking the squad out again by myself as the only NCO. I feel it myself. Shitting in a wag bag or black plastic Ziploc bag is not a fun experience. But tossing your shit into the burn pit based off the weight of the bag of your own personal production is a primal thrill, like a monkey throwing its own shit. Once again, I find myself the only NCO in the squad of 19 and 20-year-olds on their first deployment in a dangerous war zone, a probability of 23% amputation for foot patrols. The frightening part is being completely alone, like an adventure in space, but only 5 miles away from a patrol base, separated by tree lines of agricultural field, running predictions in your mind as to where the IED might be, each step representing an intense lifetime of possible death. There was no one else to save us most of the time. Sometimes we didn't even get communication with our radios. We were on a night OP in Kalawal when I was told that we had to go to a certain compound in the morning and detain suspected IED maker/emplacer. Additionally, I knew where the building was, so at first light we set off to the targeted compound. Upon reaching the compound, I sent some Marines on the outside of the building first to the outer cordon before we made entry. I went to the door of the compound and knocked on it with a night letter in my hand. A young boy answered it, and it just so happened to be the same boy who stole my map out of my cargo pocket the other day. I grabbed him by his collar and pulled him to my face. Zawarams makarasalek. I want my paper, boy, as I pushed him out of the way and entered his home. He instantly took off out of the home and running scared. Turns out, this is the Pit Pocket's real home and family. There were kids everywhere, but most of them were not awake. I told him that I have a piece of paper for the person we're looking for, Pit Pockets' dad. I mentioned his name and gave the illusion that we're here with good intentions. By that point, the father had exited through the side door, and one Marine on rear security caught him. I searched him and put my metal handcuffs on him. I have seen this guy several times, and he's very friendly and always comes out to greet us. I brought him in the compound and set him down. Then, the next part of the search is always the most difficult. Getting all the women and kids in the corner of the compound with the guard assuming that they don't leave. The average Afghan family bed consists of 4 to 6 log posts that are impaled into the mud floor. From that point, they constructed a stick bed with tree branches suspended on its posts with twine. Tied across the bed is a mat made of reeds that is filled with straw and blankets for the first layer and the second layers. Mickey Mouse joked that these beds were Hellman Kings. They were big and can hold an entire family. The beds are massive and have layers of blankets. The funny part is that we kept finding kids in every layer of the blankets. Next, we conducted a slow and deliberate search of the compound and turned out not very interesting. Again, another baby appeared out of the blankets. Moreover, there was the typical random items found in separate parts of the house, like a pistol holster, a military jacket on the roof, lamp cord, wire cutters, and empty casings from U.S. munitions. All of these are precursors to IED making, but the randomness of the locations is what doesn't make me believe that he has anything incriminating. When we bring all the items together for the final photo or money shot, it looks very incriminating. We were very pleasant to the family, as some of the Marines petted the family dog. I just imagine what it would be like for me if I was in America and a military force woke me up, searched my house, and found white lamp cord. If I was to search this compound under different circumstances, I wouldn't bother detaining anybody. While patrolling back with the suspect, the sound of flapping sandals approached from the rear, as the young pickpockets ran up to me with my map in his hand, wanting his father back. Spin the pishak, white cat, he yelled. I snatched the map out of his hand as he ran up to me, and I told him, "Sta Alibaba's makaras, sta Alibaba's saplar." You steal my paper? I steal your father. Then adding a cat-like hiss for effect. The young thief just stood there, helpless, as he watched us abduct his dad, disappearing into the distance as the March of the Empire theme music played in my head. September 2nd, 2011. I took the squad on patrol to Quebec 5 Hotel sector and split up into two elements paralleling each other. My other element was patrolling near Compound 106, the one where we rolled up the suspected IED maker 2 days prior. They stumbled upon a bag in an open grassy courtyard. The team leader for the element called it up to me and said that he thinks it might be anal, because it was silver in color and was giving off a very strong hits of every canister of the X-spray kit. I went over to assess the situation. It was anal, if I had ever seen it. One goat herder passed by and said that it was Zawel Hawk's bag. Zawel Hawk is the name of the guy we detained 2 days ago for being the suspected IED maker. I detained the goat herder because I wanted to bring him back and get him to sign a statement saying that the bag of anal was Zawel Hawk's. With the bag of anal and this guy's statement, more credible evidence there would be to put this guy away. The scenario made sense to me. Zawel Hawk knew we were coming, so he got rid of the bag of anal near the abandoned compound close to his house. The bag was near Compound 108. I had a local go to the compound first to clear it out for us. In the compound, we found electric blasting caps, some wire, burnout batteries, and carbon rods. There was also a recently eaten watermelon rind on the roof. I figured that this was an anchor point or IED making facility for Zawel Hawk. We collected up all the evidence and headed back to Transformer with the goat herder. I began the tactical questioning of the goat herder, and as it turned out, the Zawel Hawk that we had detained was not the Zawel Hawk we were looking for. Zawel Hawk we were looking for is a Taliban commander from Pakistan who used to live in the village, who came back 15 to 20 days prior and was in Sangin Valley, possibly living in Pseudo-Karez, and he commands 4 to 5 fighters. He came to the village, but the villagers did not want him there, so they told him that he would be arrested because the Marines patrol too much. Therefore, Zawel Hawk left the village and hasn't returned since. I thought that this was an elaborate cover story for our current detainee because I am always skeptical of these people. After talking to the Het Marine who came the next day, the story was true. We had detained the wrong Zawel Hawk. However, the good Zawel, or Pickpocket's father, gave up a lot of information on the bad Zawel. Good Zawel was released. I hope his son Pickpockets learned his lesson. The place and family that Pickpockets initially stole my map at was not his house or family. That makes sense as to why they seemed unfazed when Mickey Mouse showed his 9mm pistol. Other than that, new word is that we won't stop patrolling until October 9th. And the 1-6 Marines here with us will be leaving on the 15th to take over all of Recon's area to the north, which sucks for us if it turns out to be that way because we will never seem to get patrolling relief. Also, they want to move the Marines out of PB Fahim and demilitarize it, which seems really stupid, but we will see what happens. Chapter 11, Counterparts. You are the company you keep. September 4th, 2011. Welcome to my parlor, said the spider to the fly. It was a typical 2-day patrol, started in the morning. I swung the patrol by Good Zawel Hawk or Pickpocket's house and gave him a crank radio and a packet of pumpkin seeds. He was just as happy as ever, and he showed no ill will towards us. And then he showed us the location of where an IED had been in place but was later removed. Then I had to patrol up to PB Fahim about 2 kilometers away to retrieve a piece of gear. When we arrived to the small small outpost, I went to the COC to check in. The 1-6 Marines from Fahim told us the situation up there was starting to look bad. Talibs are placing IEDs in every area in which they have been used as a tactical strongpoint. While meeting in the COC, I listened to the radio traffic from their current patrol. The patrol found and destroyed 3 IEDs during the short time that I was up there. I talked to their lieutenant and asked him how often they conduct night operation. The response was not the correct answer, and given the current situation reflects their lack of effort. I don't think 1-6 understands counterinsurgency, as many locals have complained to me that they don't like the Marines of Fahim. The locals know who the Mohawk Marines are because we wear green frog gear. In contrast, the 1-6 Marines wear desert frog gear with green Kevlar covers. I guess they didn't get the memo, or the Marine Corps as an institution is grossly failing at passing along this critical piece of information. September 5th, 2011. A squad from 1-6 with us here in Transformer had a local bring them a white jug with orange Russian detonation cord with this black dirt-looking substance. The local found it in his field, and it wasn't attached to any sort of power source or initiator. They brought it back, and I suspected that it was possibly a different form of homemade explosive. Most anal is silver in color and is very common in the Sangin district. That squad had no training on the X-Spray kit, and I demonstrated how it works to them with a sample of the black substance. Upon testing with X-Spray, the sample instantly tested positive for containing a very high nitrate content. Back when I was the click chief, I read this thing that said that the Taliban have been known to use black fertilizer to make homemade explosive. They call it Tor, which means black in Pashto. I don't have any information as to what sort of homemade explosive it is produced from, but I can only speculate that this black substance is the byproduct of fertilizer. It was sent up to EOD, and they took it back to Increment to examine what it was. We took a sample of it and burnt it, and it caught fire like anal does, or any other military-grade explosive. September 6, 2011. I didn't go on patrol today because my squad is on guard rotation for the next 2 days, so one of the 1-6 patrols went out, and they shot a guy, and they noticed this guy following them and counting. Then the man pulled out an ICOM radio and was talking on. Right before this, some radio battalion traffic came in over the network stating that an attack will happen. Then I see the Marines being passed over the radio in Pashto. Another strange thing happened, such as the atmospheric shift with no locals out of their houses. Therefore, one Marine in the squad saw this man on the ICOM. The squad leader shot him and simply grazed the man's leg. The squad leader, Doyle, got a rash of shit from me and the other Marines for not killing him, and now we must deal with the live detainee. Brought the injured Afghan to me, and I questioned him. I put him through the full white face cat treatment. He may have been lying about what he did, and he denied everything. It turns out that the mullah of the mosque in Kalawal, as he claims that he knows nothing and did nothing wrong. I grilled him with questions, as he had an untreated bullet wound in his leg. They usually say the same thing when it comes to ICOMs or other things that lets me know that they're guilty. I'm not lying. I'm not lying. If you find it, I'm guilty. Referring to the alleged item, and in this case, an ICOM. Is that what your Talib friends teach you, that we must find it? These people are horrible liars, but constant liars. I stressed him out quite a bit, and he was very scared. I hope this guy is guilty and 1-6 does not get trigger happy, and if that's the case, then they would definitely upset the delicate balance of Kalawal that we have worked so hard to get. And as I analyze the significant events that have unfolded since 1-6 has been here, I predict that things will start to get froggy quickly in the later half of the month that we are here. I'm guessing more IEDs will start to be discovered in our area, and that's due to several overall factors. The amount of homemade explosive precursors, the previously in place and later removed IED found in the village of LaGuardian, and the IED belts being in place to the north of Fahim, and topped off with 1-6 pissing people off. The only possible thing preventing IED placement is our constant security patrols. But the opposite side to that is that more Marines equals more pattern setting. September 7th, 2011. Using a full medical IV drip bag with detonation cord will cause a thick, well-secured metal door to blast open due to the explosive water pressure. However, don't use doors because there is most likely an IED in the doorway. Additionally, the doorway creates choke points. 6 feet within the front of any doorway of a room is called the fatal funnel because all of the rounds from the enemy go to that funnel. It's best to blow the wall. Welder 2-1 was on patrol and they went to the village of LaGuardian to begin searching. The welder patrols have been keeping themselves occupied on patrol by attempting to search every compound in the area. They make an X over every compound. They spray paint a red X over every compound that they have previously searched, and the method that they search the compounds is poorly. They shouldn't do it. Anyway, today they went by a compound with a door that was opened and animals walking around inside. They figured that it was cleared of pressure plate IEDs because the animals roaming freely in it, and they began to search it. As the squad leader, Doyle, the same guy who shot the mullah Kalawal yesterday, walked into the room 2 feet past the doorway. He heard an audible click followed by a boom. Shrapnel sliced through several parts of his plate carrier and frog gear. Not a single piece that hit him drew blood, simply grazed parts of his uniform. He is extremely lucky and only suffered a concussion. Explosive ordnance disposal showed up for the post-blast analysis and concluded that it was not a pressure plate, but a remote-controlled IED. This falling into the trends that have developed with the recent significant acts in the village of LaGuardian. My squad was looking for Zalwell Hawk, the RC IED maker who used to live in the village that was seen last not that long ago. My squad found a bag of anal in the blasting cap. Doyle's squad had also found a jug of homemade explosive with detonation cord, and IED belts were being placed around patrol base Fahim. To top it all off, welder squads have been setting a pattern, and the pattern is searching random compounds. All the precursors were there of an RCIED attack, and they were not to be ignored. The only problem is I had misjudged what pattern it was, but luckily it was not a pattern that I had set. They were classically baited into a compound with the heuristic that it was cleared by animals and struck an improvised explosive device with a triggerman who was a distance away. Another thing is, what they did wrong is they did not have the Thor system in the room while it was being searched. Captain O'Shea said that we will not search any more compounds without due cause for the rest of the time that we're here, and that's fine with me. I never did that anyway. I explained to the welder squads once again that they can achieve the same effect by simply throwing pro-government magazine into the compound by going inside and searching it. This gives the illusion that it was searched and will only cause the Taliban hiding to get paranoid and move his weapons whatnot north, PB Fahim's area, or south to PB Fire's area. Once the cash is out of our area, it's not our problem. Today, we went to Inkerman and heard some news that Alpha Company 16 located in southern Sangan Valley had lost a pack off their trucks when making a vehicle movement. The pack had a rocket launcher called a Law attached to it, one set of night vision goggles or NVGs, 14 Bravos, and one set of thermal optics, PAS 27s, and some issued gear. We finished up what was needed to be done at Inkerman and went back to PB Transfomer. As soon as we got back, my squad was told that we were to do a night raid on a compound approximately 500 meters away from our patrol base. The target compound supposedly had the backpack with all the gear. All this info was coming in from the human engagement team sourced, and at 0330 we took off to the compound. We had established a continuous illumination target so we can have light while searching the compound. We showed up, shot an illumination mission, set up the cordon, began to search the compound. The whole thing was very sexy. We terrorized a single mother and her kids, but we ended up finding the gear and the night vision goggles, but not the rocket launcher. The HET team with us dealt with the questioning of the people. We just searched, but it was awesome to get a productive search, actionable piece of intelligence. The person who picked up the pack was a 15-year-old who hid part of the gear in one location and the thermal scope and rocket launcher in another location. He was at the separate location and took off when he saw the illumination rounds in the sky. I hope the thermals and the rocket launcher show up, but overall it was a very fun night. We had heard some rumors that 4th Recon might be here on the 15th to relieve us, while 1-6 moves to another location. For now, it's just a rumor, and I hope that happens. September 11th, 2011. I re-enlisted today, not because it was September 11th, but because it was convenient. I got some pictures of it and gave a speech at the last minute that the video was recorded. Talked about the strength of a country is reflected by the number of people willing to fight and kill for it. I often think that if staying in the Marine Corps is the right decision. I don't like the job for the most part. the pay, or the lifestyle. Some things I enjoy and will forever miss if I left. I think the biggest factor to me staying in is the medical care for my daughter. I didn't care about fighting or anything anymore. War scares me. I remember when I first got to the School of Infantry, I received the same speech on the parade deck bleachers as all the infantrymen had received and continue to do to this day, I hope. The Marine lecturing us said, "Think of your graduating class in high school. How many of them became Marines? And of those Marines, how many became infantry? How many of them became combat veterans?" My answer is 1 in 300. I am the only person from my high school graduating class has ever served in direct combat. I am now one of the few Marines who has served in 2 wars. September 15th, 2011. I hear we ain't getting out of this life alive. A Marine from Bravo Company was a hero today by a pressure plate around Patrol Base Atoll. The patrol was being led down a path by a local that led to a wall. The wall had a break about 2 feet off the ground, in which the local easily jumped over. However, the Marine, with all of his gear on, stepped over the break in the wall and hit the pressure plate on the other side. Another notable event, Carlton went out on the evening patrol and passed near the home where the kid was killed 2 months back. The father of the boy, with a big smile, summoned Carlton's squad over in a jubilant manner. "Rasha, Rasha!" Approaching the home, the squad witnessed the headless body of a foreign national male in his late 20s laying in a wheelbarrow off the traveled path near the family's mud fertilizer shack. The irises decayed since time had passed, and Carlton's squad was unsuccessful in retrieving the iris scans from the decapitated. The father smiling satisfactorily as he mentioned to Carlton how he killed the man, then cut his head off with the shovel. "Taliban!" the father kept chanting in euphoria. The father had been patiently waiting for the next Mohawk patrol to inform us. Carlton was able to collect the fingerprints and DNA. Carlton reported the incident up to higher and continued patrolling. Heading the other direction was the father, happily wheeling the corpse towards the Helmand River to be consumed by freshwater crabs. September 16th, 2011. Welder 2-1, led by Doyle, the same guy who shot the mullah and struck an IED, allegedly struck another IED less than 200 meters northwest of the wire. They were patrolling through the corn when Doyle noticed an ant trail. He followed the ant trail 20 feet into the corn where he saw a white jug with an antenna sticking out of it. He turned around and began to run back when the IED went off, knocking him to the ground. No one was injured. Doyle had a concussion, the second one now, and EOD was called out to investigate it. It happened to be an RC IED, and the ant trail was bait to get Marines to the IED where it would be blown. We believe the trigger man was on the hill in the brown zone to our east, and he was able to observe the patrol because of their desert frog gear in the green corn fields. Now Welder is 2 for 2 for IED strikes in our area, and Mohawk has not had an IED strike in our area since we have been here. Welder has been really pissing people off. Valdez brought the owner of the cornfield over from 2 Transfomer for me to question, and that was unproductive. He was a cab driver who hires a farmer to work his field while he is away on the road. He told me that there was an IED strike the previous year in the field that killed the farmer last year. September 17th, 2011. I employed my machete today, which I named the Regimental Commander's Fight, as an inside joke. We moved through the corn 90% of the patrol and slayed a gratuitous amount of it. Afghans don't plant their corn in rows. They grow density patches, approximately 50 meters squared. Around each densely packed square is a grid-like parameter of raised trails. Irrigation was a flood system allowing water to move into the squares and creating a mud bog of tall corn. The corn was extremely dense and it was like walking through a marshy cattail swamp. I enjoyed the corn because no one could see us and there was no pressure plates in the swamp. I compared paths from where we had moved through the corn prior without the machete and the new path with the machete. Big difference. Nothing was discreet at all except we pushed into the corn about 10 feet before hacking it up, so as not to highlight our entry point. Corn is slow, but you keep your legs. We got a tip from the locals that the Taliban were going to put an IED in the village of Wikiland tonight, so we set up a night OP in the village, but nothing happened. For the night OP, we took over a local's compound and they gave us food. The food was great. We also had chai. The homeowner was eating with us until one of the Marines in the squad, who was a Pacific Islander, came and sat down with us besides the homeowner. Villa Gomez is of Asian Pacific Islander descent, but if you didn't know any better, you'd think he's black. The local was disgusted when Villa Gomez sat down next to him and kept saying, "Tor Marine no good," or "Black Marine is no good," and turned his back to Villa Gomez. Prior to Villa Gomez sitting down, we had been dipping the bread into the chai and eating it, which is good. Villa Gomez attempted to do the same thing, but because it was dark, he dipped the bread into the small bowl of sugar. The Afghan was pissed and instantly took the sugar bowl away while bitching about the tour Marine. He basically said that, if you want sugar, I'll give it to you, but we can't trust you because of that damn black Marine. Life here has not been easy for Villa Gomez because Afghans are extremely racist to anyone with darker skin color than them. September 18th, 2011. Today's patrol was the first patrol I took out a recon Marine to get familiarized with our area. I only took out one Marine in my element, and he was a master gunnery sergeant. While on patrol, I got a tip from a kid in the village of Jokeron named Hot Rod because he likes to jump the canals and ditches on his dirt bike. Hot Rod told me the names of 2 Talibans that live in the villages of Kalawal and Mulakan. While out, I showed Master Guns the area, places to avoid, previous enemy fighting positions, and introduced him to some key players and gave some history lessons along the way. I introduced him to a 20-something-year-old local living near the village of Kalawal. He went by the name of Fez. He could speak decent English, wears white clothing, black turban, and a metal golden watch. Fez excitedly approached us and wanted to know everything about the new Marine. Fez was the same guy we caught writing fake claim notes to try to get money, signing the note Cap Man instead of Captain. I patrolled and talked as Fez walked alongside us. I told Master Guns about my interaction with our minder in the past, and I told him how he likes to play political and get friendly with the Marines in the guise of wanting to learn more English. I told Master Guns that I'm highly confident that this English-speaking local, Fez, is Taliban. I explained it to the Master Guns in a higher articulation of English that our Taliban minder could not understand. I told Master Guns the same thing that the locals have told me. Look at the palms of his hands, I said. Master Guns asked Fez to see the palms of his hands. Fez flipped over the palms of his hands. They don't have calluses or blisters on them like the rest of the farmers, I said, and the Master Guns understood. In previous engagements, when questioning locals and accusing locals of being Taliban, the common thing they did was hold out the palms of their hands to show that they're a farmer. I really didn't understand what the locals were saying until I really started to notice. September 19th, 2011. Today I took out 2 reconnaissance Marines, a captain, and a staff sergeant. The same thing again with me introducing them and educating them on the area as we patrolled from Transfomer to Kalawal and back. On the way, we hit up the village of Yarbozai, where Sharifullah and his entire family live. I introduced them, and the recon Marines began taking pictures of Sharifullah and his family. Then I took them to the village of Kalawal, where I began to look for the alleged Talib that Hot Rod had told me about yesterday. I asked the local, and he told me that he knew where the man was we were looking for and where we lived. Then I had him lead me to his house, but the man I was looking for wasn't there at the time. We searched the house and found several expended casings of PKM rounds and some other military trash. This compound was connected to another compound where a man was working inside and was extremely nervous. I was running out of daylight with no translator to assist me. I had put handcuffs on this guy and was going to take him back to Transformer and question him. His wife came out and held on to him and refused to let him go. Then the ANA, who were joined with us on patrol, were not helping me out either, as they were bitching to me. His wife came out and held on to him and refused to let go. I explained several times that he would be back tonight, and I just wanted to ask him questions. His wife was still making me angry as she was bitching at me and tried prying them apart. The way she was trying to protect him only made me more suspicious that this guy was no good. Then the kids started crying. It was like an episode of Cops. The only reason I let go of him was because we were running out of daylight fast and we needed to get back. I pulled my key out to unlock the handcuffs, but this stubborn woman wouldn't let go. I should have just left the handcuffs on him as I started chastising her in Pashto about how fucking romantic she was. She finally moved so I can unlock the metal handcuffs with my key. Chapter 12. Retrograde. War is when the government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you decide who the enemy is. Benjamin Franklin. September 21st, 2011. My last patrol was today, and it was a typical day in the Northern Green Zone with the following of Afghans everywhere I went. Most places I stopped, the locals asked me, Chirya, meaning, where are you going? Or Sukhoi, meaning, what are you doing here? They asked these questions to lead us around the cornfield so that we don't trample on them. We stopped and drank chai with some good friends that we made on the patrol who gave us good tips on the Taliban. I didn't tell them that this was my last patrol because they would have wanted me to give them one of my possessions as a memento. As the patrol came to its glorious end, I reflected on how dangerous this area was and the unbelievable progress that was made by this ragtag group of mortarmen. I reflected on how this was the most popular I've ever been in my life and probably ever will be. I liked the attention at first. It got annoying most of the time, but at least I knew that these people wanted to keep me safe and did what it took to protect us. I will miss these people, I'm sure, but right now, I don't care about anything but myself. Each step back to Transformer, I wondered if this was my last step I take with my legs before they're gone, like so many other Marines in Sangin. As soon as I began to enter the entry control point, a big smile hit my face. My last patrol. Thank God, it feels as if a big weight has been lifted. I can breathe again. It's like the clouds of darkness that loomed over my head are now beginning to disappear, and I can think about my life in the future tense, vice the now. The fear of the unknown is a very minimal now that I know I'll be able to sleep better at night. I have my legs, and same with every member in the 81's platoon. Other things that have happened. It turns out that Doyle, the squad leader from Welder, was being investigated for those 2 remote-controlled IED strikes that he had. The first alleged IED strike, explosive ordnance disposal investigators found a grenade pin and spoon, which leads them to believe that he threw the grenade into the room to fake the IED strike. Then the investigators believe the IED strike from the corn was negligent discharge from a 203 round as they were trying to cover it up. After talking to other Marines in Welder, it turns out that Doyle is a massive liar, and he has never been in combat before. He told me that he didn't want any Purple Heart because he had already been awarded one from his last deployment, but that story was complete bullshit. He would have gotten away with the first fake IED strike and possibly the second had he said that they were command wire IEDs and not remote controlled. When his stupid lying ass said they were remote controlled, flags were raised. Computer satellites and crypto were changed in order of a congressional level because it was believed that the enemy had found a way to defeat our radio interference systems. Now Doyle and one of his partners in crime is going to face court-martial, and I hope he pays. However, the bigger crime he is being charged with is attempted murder for shooting the mullah in the leg a while back. Now I just feel horrible for grilling the mullah. The word is now that on the 25th we'll go to Fob Nole and then Fob Jackson, and at Jackson we'll stand post until the 14th and then leave to Camp Leatherneck. From Leatherneck we begin our journey home, but when we get home, I don't care. Today is the only day I care about. Tomorrow will bring its new problems. I will just have to survive the trip back and hopefully not get blown up in a vehicle or crash in a helicopter, as Marine Corps aviation is famous for. First, we went to Increment to do some deployment health assessment and to call home, but we couldn't call home because we were in River City. Someone in 1-6 down in the southern green zone was killed on post by shooting himself in the face. September 25th, 2011. We said our goodbyes to the Transformer workers, ate food, gave hugs, and got pictures. We said goodbye to the Afghan soldiers and Wolfman. Wolfman gave me his wool hat that is worn by the people of the northern part of Afghanistan, the same style hat that Dr. Baki wears. As we drove south out of PB Transfomer, I began to quickly reminisce. Almost every building I saw had some history with me in the daily adventures of the life of the White Cat. They stuck out to me with their own individual stories that I could not ignore, as if they were begging to be told one more time, whether it was someone I knew, good or bad, or some place that was iconic. These elaborate structures made of mud resonated with me. One of the locals said that God had sent us to help the people of Sangin, and some locals called us the kings of Kalawal. A common joke about post-traumatic stress is that it's coming to the realization that you will never be that badass again in your life. It's funny, but kind of true. We left all of our green frog gear for our replacements and donned our desert uniforms. My squad and I have been sent back to Fob Jackson to stand guard for the remaining time here in Sangin, 7 days. We made it to Jackson with all our gear, unharmed, and it should be a very skate time, and I don't have to do a damn thing. The word is we're leaving to Fob Nole to fly out of the 3rd, and the company has different flight days in which we're going to be taking off. My flight to Leatherneck is on the 7th. We are arguably safer here, and the chances of me losing a limb or dying is small. September 28th, 2011. 3 IED strikes today in the area. 1 Marine from Charlie Company, which was a low-order detonation that broke his foot. 1 Marine from 1-6 in the southern green zone, who was a double amputee. And 1 more Marine that I have no other information about. Hearing that news sucks, but it doesn't faze me like it used to because I'm safe and no longer subject to danger. Needless to say, we are in River City and I can't call home. October 8th, 2011. Yay, we're leaving earlier than expected. This morning, we loaded into the CH-52 helicopter as the engine whined and fobbed nole. Tired and hungry from waking up early, it was almost dreamlike. When riding in the helicopter, I wondered how many of us would not make it back, said Mickey, somberly, as he told me, but happily as he sat down. The bird lifted off, and we sat in anticipation that Muhammad Issa's RPG would soon find itself exploding on us. The bird went higher and higher out of RPG range. Through the open rear of the helicopter, masked by the silhouette of the door gunner, I watched Sangin sink away in the distance. I can't explain the way I felt. It was a mix of joy and sorrow. I just stared out into the landscape, as many other Marines did, trying to soak it in, thinking that this was the last time I will ever see Sangin again. Hopefully. I felt joy, but also emptiness, as if something was not complete. Not many Americans will ever come to Afghanistan or visit a far-off country, and many will never understand the great adventure that was Sangin, except for those who survived it with me. The overwhelming and uncontrollable tears possessed our bodies. We are back in Camp Leatherneck, and it is surreal. Now every tent here has Wi-Fi. Complete waste of money amongst other things. I went to the chow hall and ate real American food for the first time since I left Leatherneck. It was very rich. I had become accustomed to native food and disgusting UGRs or MREs. The thought of eating an MRE makes me sick. Leatherneck is developing quickly, and it's out of control with expansion. It all just seems like a dream, and as soon as I wake up to consciousness, I'm gonna realize I'm in an IED strike. If it is a dream, then I don't want to wake up. On my laptop, I watched HBO's The Pacific and listened to the interviews of the Marines from World War II as reinforcement to the reenactment. It felt strange because the Marines being interviewed expressed the same thing, like coming home felt like it was a dream. October 20th, 2011. As I sit on this commercial airliner waiting to fly home, I am filled with joy and fatigue. I wondered on the flight to Manas if this was going to be the last commercial flight in which I will be alive or in one piece. Looming thoughts of death creep in my mind as if I cheated it and it's coming after me. I think back about how fast this deployment went, much faster than the first two I've been on, and how I'm going to miss this adventure that I just had the privilege to survive. Coming to Sangin, we all wondered what our purpose was and haunted by the fear of the unknown. We're a ragtag group of infantry mortarmen sent to do something outside of our line of work. We did things differently than the rest in the way we patrolled and interacted with the Afghan people. In this counterinsurgency fight, hiding your humanity is just as dangerous as complacency. We lived by the rules and had many close calls, but we took no casualties. A true miracle. We provided security to the people and showed our humanity, resulting the locals and Taliban alike showed theirs. The people loved us because we sold them peace. We sold them security, but most importantly, we sold them hope. Undeniably, Mohawk got off easy, but our 1/6 replacements did not fare so well. Napoleon Bonaparte once said, "A leader is a dealer in hope." I leave you, the listener, with this question. How do you get scared, rational, well-armed, young, entitled American men to get their gear on and patrol after watching their friend disappear in a crack of dust? It takes the best leadership the United States has to offer. As for the Minecraft kids of Sangin, I hope the school continues and they have a better life. As long as the U.S. is in Sangin, the curse of the Minecraft kids will carry on. Parting shots. After years of haunting dreams, attending suicide funerals, and a bout of homelessness, I have spent too much of my life processing the events that happened long ago in a land far away. Now, as a data scientist, this is the finest and most dangerous data set I have ever collected. Now that the war is ended, the curse of the Minecraft kids may stop. The foreign fighters haven't stopped their seasonal flood. Kids can farm and go to school, and I pray that the school is still in operation in Sangin. I pray that the people forgive us, and the appalling craft of mine-planting children is stopped forever. While history rhymes, you must honestly ask yourself, did the United States really lose the Vietnam War? No, we didn't lose the war, and the proof is evident every time you flip over a product and it states, made in Vietnam. Capitalism won the war in Vietnam. The fight was led by veterans of the war returning as businessmen, armed with the native language and cultural knowledge. So, who is the Taliban? Taliban translates to student. The hardcore Taliban of September 11, 2001 are all dead. The Taliban is just a brand name. Now it's a U.S. brand, a unified fighting system that surpasses tribal boundaries and language barriers. A brand that stands out every time a Taliban member handles a weapon with their firing finger straightened off the trigger. The sign of the infidel. There are some things that you can't uninstill, like training. The Taliban are now the former Afghan National Army, the people that we have been living with and grooming this whole time. While the United States raised a puppet government and Army. At the same time, the ANA uses the U.S. Marines as puppets against the flood of foreign fighters and local population. I have hope that the Taliban in charge will not be the religious zealots of the past. In spite of their pain, we have trust in the future of Afghanistan and the survivors of this war.